All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Wargames podcast number 41. So, got a bit of a special one for you guys tonight, as you can tell from the title there. We're going to be covering our next deployment for the 506th. For anybody that doesn't know, the Warno was put up, what would it be, yesterday? Yeah. Warno was put up yesterday, so we are being redeployed to the fictional country of Skazistan, which I'll, from here on out, refer to as Skazi. And Mr. AA Ron starting it off right with the 14th month resub. Goddamn. Thank you, AA Ron. So, yeah, we're going to be talking about the deployment. What I kind of want to do with you guys is run you through kind of why this deployment is different from everything that we've done before, and kind of give you guys a little bit of an inside look as to how much work has gone into getting this deployment off the ground, and some of the kind of background stuff that a lot of you would not be aware of, even guys that are in the unit. Just wouldn't be aware of how much work goes into getting a deployment off the ground in the first place, let alone a deployment like this. Before we get to that, however, we are going to talk about some stuff that we talked about last week. And yes, very quickly, Assault, I have looked at the new RHS stuff. I'm actually going to be doing a stream tomorrow afternoon where I'm going to be taking you guys through all of the RHS updates, some of the new weapons, gear, stuff like that. So tomorrow afternoon, yeah, I'll be showing you guys all the new RHS stuff. Some of the stuff we'll be using, hopefully, and then still take you guys through the stuff we won't be using, and something very, very cool, which is the addition of I think they're called C-mags in RHS. I've always heard them referred to as beta mags, basically 100-round drum magazines for 5.56 rifles. Yeah, so tomorrow afternoon I'll show you guys why that's really fucking cool for me. But before we get to that, like I said, I want to talk about some stuff that we spoke about last week, and that was kind of the new, I guess, quote-unquote show or whatever that me and the Lobster are doing, who is here with us tonight as per usual. Yeah, tonight. Get my fucking Canadian in there. It is kind of weird considering like where I'm at and my region and family and stuff like that, because sometimes my Kentuckian will fucking slide through and other times my Canadian will slide through. It's a little fucking weird. Like when I say supper, everybody's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, where the fuck are you from?
Yeah. Like, yeah, I'm gonna go have supper. They're like, you mean dinner? No, I mean fucking supper. Suck a dick. Alright, so last week, yeah, we talked about the new show that we're gonna be doing called Be Kind Rewind, which is basically me and Lobster sitting around for a few hours and recording a show for you guys of us talking about movies that we, grew up watching, or, just movies through the years that we have loved, basically from the, mid to late 80s all the way up through the very early 2000s. And the first one that we did was for Demolition Man, a movie that both of us absolutely fucking love. And I think we ended up recording for about 3 hours or 3.5 hours, right?
Yeah,
Something
about
like
3
that.
hours.
It was a long
3
time.
hours, and then it's like two and 3/4 because we took a break in there to to use the bathroom, grab a smoke, and all that shit.
So last week we kind of announced the show and told you guys, we'd have Lobster to have it up for you on YouTube like Thursday or Friday or something like that. That didn't happen.
No.
That didn't happen. To tell you the truth, I could have predicted that wasn't going to happen. Reason why is anybody that's had any experience editing, videos, music, whatever, when you're talking about 3 hours or so of footage and audio and so on that you're editing, that's days worth of editing. I mean, I can tell you guys, I've spent, a week editing a 3.5 minute long song, let alone a 3 hour long video to edit. It's a ridiculous amount of work. And I told Losser that, before we even really started anything, like, this is going to be a fuck ton of editing. And he has very quickly found out how much editing that is.
Yes.
So, Lobster, what's going on with Be Kind Rewind? Where are we sitting at with the first episode? What's going on? So on and so forth.
Oh, nothing's being canceled. Nothing is like that. It's just more work than I thought it was going to be. So, as much as I'd love to do the show, like we were talking like on a weekly basis or whatever, but like realistically, we'd probably bump it down to like once every other week or something like that, just because I would have to be editing like every day of the week basically to. I mean, obviously I would get better over time, but let me back up. So we have all this. We have all this. We have the track. It's think of it like this for anybody who isn't familiar with editing at all. So I have my audio track for my voice, right? I have the audio track that I recorded of your voice. I have to sync those up, and then whenever I make an edit or a cut, I have to make sure that I edit both of those simultaneously, or else my voice and your voice are out of sync, and it's weird, and then
Mm-hmm.
I have to correct it. So that's the first thing I had to do was sync that. Secondly, this is a show with visual elements too. It's not an audio show. It's not like the podcast. Even though your podcast does have visuals to it, you could just listen to it and it would it would kind
Yeah,
of have
the
the same
video
effect.
has basically nothing to do
Yeah.
with the audio.
Every once in a while, you do toss in like last week when we watched the Red Dead
Right.
trailer, like But so when we're discussing a film,
Which, by the way, I totally got fucking copyrighted for. I was like,
oh,
fuck
did
you,
they get you?
Rockstar.
Oh man, that sucks.
It doesn't matter. My
Uh,
shit's not fucking monetized anyways.
yeah. So when we're discussing a film, the kind of show that I want to do has visual elements to it. I'm taking inspiration from shows like, I don't know, shows like History Buffs, Red Letter Media when they do Half in the Bag or when they do their show review. There's shows where it's just two guys or one guy just sitting around bullshitting about a movie, right? But when they talk about certain things, I want to put it on the screen when we're discussing a certain scene. It has more impact if you actually have the visual cue on the screen. The problem with that is that we talked for 3 hours and the movie is like 2 hours long.
Right.
So obviously I can't just put the fucking film up from start to finish, especially because we're talking in order, but we spend more time on some scenes than other scenes. So I have to cut all that up so that it fits. I also have to make sure that if people are watching it and not listening to it, that it stays engaging. Because if you just stare at a black screen for a long time, you get bored. It's like when you watch TV. That's why when you're watching a movie or you're watching the news, why it cuts so many times, because that's about the average span of like the human attention span. Like you need like cuts and things like that to like keep you engaged. So I'm working on all of this.
Unless you're watching a Kevin Smith movie and you just
Unless
sit
you're
there for 20 minutes watching two dudes.
Yeah, exactly. You're watching Dante and Randall behind the counter talking about fucking jizz moppers.
Right.
Uh, but um, but yeah, this so on top of that, I ran into a lot of technical problems as soon as we were done. Like the day after, I'm like, you know what? Okay, time to start cutting this up. When I record you talking, I recorded it through my OBS, right?
Mm-hmm.
OBS's default output file is an FLV. Sony Vegas doesn't acknowledge FLV. So I had to convert the FLV, which on paper isn't that hard to do. There's a lot of converters out there that work. The problem is that when I did it a couple of times, when you convert it, you kind of have to like render it. It has to like render while you're doing it. So
Mm-hmm.
depending on how fast your CPU is, it takes longer. I don't have a very good CPU, so to convert to 3 hour, basically I'm recording my stream, which is recording your voice. So to do that, it was like like 30 minutes, 20 minutes to convert it from an FLV to an MP4. And the first couple of times I did that, first time the audio was cut, it didn't work.
Oh,
Um,
Jesus.
and and then the second time, I believe, it was just flat out corrupted. So yeah, so I had to finally fix that, and then when I finally sat down, I started cutting and editing. I started realizing how much work I'm doing, and then I would in Sony Vegas, and I'd see like how much I had left,
Right, there's
and it's
still this
like,
big ass long strip.
yeah, I would spend like 2 hours cutting and editing, and we'd be like at maybe the 20-minute mark of the video. I have barely scratched the surface, and like
Why in the hell do you? Why is it your shit decides to start dropping fucking packets once you are trying to talk to me?
of shit to
Um,
to edit.
so
So it's like,
Loster has gone full fucking robot mode here and dropping a fuck ton of packets and stuff. Uh, but I didn't even think about the fact that OBS's fucking default output is FLV. It's been so long since I first set up OBS and shit. I forgot that I changed my default to MP4 or whatever the fuck it is. So yeah, I didn't even fucking think about that. And yes, Hardman has made the unit his job. But yeah, if Hardman, if you figure out a way to get paid for this, let me know so I can get in on that. I guess I already technically kind of get paid for this, but not really. I get paid by you guys being awesome. Which, by the way, we're actually sitting at, I think it was 58 subs right now. I looked a little bit before starting the podcast. I think we're sitting at 58 subs, which is fucking awesome. That's about double what I normally had. So I can't thank you guys enough for that support. Believe me, those Twitch payouts that come every 45 days or whatever make a huge difference. So while we're waiting for Loster to get his shit squared away, as I said, I wanted to kind of take you guys through tonight the deployment that we're getting ready to start and so on. So to kind of, I guess, take you guys to the inception of everything. This deployment, really the planning for it, or I guess the initial conception phase of it, started last year. And that may sound, kind of silly, like why in the fuck would you start planning that far out? Obviously, we had like a short little deployment. Shit, how long ago was that now? 2 months ago? Something like that, that we had the last little short deployment. The Operation Thunderstorm. We knew that we would have extra time to do kind of a big deployment because we'd be doing a short little deployment kind of at the first of the year, start of the year, whatever. But I knew that I wanted to make this deployment different from anything else that we've ever done before. I wanted to pull in a lot more of our assets that we have available to us in terms of, the S2 intelligence side, which we kind of played around with a little bit in Operation Crimson Moon. So for any of you guys that were in the unit at that time, you remember the big S2 all hands brief that we did at the start of that. That was really kind of the getting the ball rolling, if you will, in terms of what we're getting ready to do. So, as I said, I started kind of thinking about this deployment last year and how I wanted this to go about. And for anybody that's, kind of working in the background on this, they know that this deployment is kind of my baby. I'm more involved in this deployment than I've ever been in any deployment in the unit in terms of the planning, the execution, everything like that. I'm kind of quarterbacking everything, which means I'm taking all the fucking responsibility. If, this deployment sucks, it's pretty much on me. Every single decision that's being made in terms of this deployment is going through me first. So, yeah, if it's fucked up, that's on my head. So, when I was doing the planning for this, I knew I wanted to do a Middle Eastern campaign. I wanted coin, but I didn't want just purely coin. So I wanted to kind of be able to mix a couple of different elements into that. And hopefully we'll be able to see that in the deployment. Obviously, I'm not going to go into a ton of detail as to what different things are going to be in there. I want that to be a surprise for you guys. But I knew I wanted a Middle Eastern campaign. I knew I wanted coin elements in there, which is why we started doing trainings in the FTXs on coin. Now, for anybody that's been watching the FTX videos or has been in the FTXs, we've said multiple times, this is stuff that we've never done before in the unit. Despite how prominent coin is in real world right now, we've never done it in the 506. We've had very, very little, kind of sprinklings of it, but we've never done full-on, like, legit coin before. And really, in reality, even what we're doing now isn't totally legit coin. It's still a little, Michael Bay coin. But, it's much more indicative of real-world operations than what we've had in the past. So, we're dealing with, things we've never really dealt with before on a, I guess, fairly common scale. So, we're dealing with IEDs, we're dealing with VBEDs, we're dealing with SVES, we're dealing with a lot of civilian populace, things like that we haven't really had to deal with all that much before. So, in terms of the initial planning for this, like I said, I knew I wanted to get S2 involved and kind of increase their role on the actual deployment. Traditionally, the S2 guys, they'll give us little kind of storyline setups for the start of the deployment, and then once the deployment starts, that's pretty much it. They might do, a news story here or there, but, nothing really that big. Now, in reality, S2 in real world has a much, much bigger job than that, and I wanted to start kind of incorporating that a little bit more into our deployment. So I had the idea, instead of doing one giant S2 brief, an all hands brief at the very start of the deployment, why don't we do it more like reality and have an S2 brief before every operation? So I started kind of playing around with that idea and trying to figure out how we could implement that, how we could get an actual S2 brief, before we step off every night. So we came up with the idea of, having S2 be able to write up the brief, and then, having someone deliver it, but we didn't really know who to have deliver it. Should we have the task force commander read the S2 brief? But in reality, it doesn't really make any sense, because he's, the task force commander wouldn't be the one briefing his guys in terms of the intelligence. You would actually have an intelligence representative there, stuff like that. So we came up with a way to get that delivered. I'm not going to go through all those details and stuff, but basically, we figured out a way that we can have an S2 brief before every operation. So, we can all get set up, and, someone will tell us, this is what's going on in the area. This is what the area has been like over the last 48 hours. These are the kind of things that we've had happening, so on and so forth. And my overall goal for that was to not only make it realistic, as that's what actually happens, but even more so realistic in the sense that in real world, when you're hearing it like every day, it can you can get kind of complacent about it, and it's like, okay, yeah, I've heard this same shit. We've been going to the same town or the same province every day for the past 2 weeks. It's the same fucking S2 brief every time. This is what the weather's going to be like. This is, what kind of happenings have been going on in the last 48 hours. This is our threat assessment, so on and so forth. It's the same thing over the last 2 weeks. I don't need to pay attention to this. I'm going to sit here and drink my coffee and fucking enjoy it before I got to go to work. And then one random day, he ends up mentioning, oh, and by the way, such and such element of such and such unit were hit by a V-bed here last night, and 5 packs were injured. 2 civilians were killed. When you hear that, you suddenly fucking perk up and listen real quick. And I would like to see, not necessarily the exact same happen for us in the deployment, because obviously I want guys to pay attention and, listen, and guys put a lot of work into this kind of stuff. But I would kind of like that, oh shit moment, for some random fucking PFC that's like, yeah, I'm going to sit here and tab out in game because I've heard this shit, for the past 2 months. And then, oh, by the way, fucking, Alpha Company was hit by a fucking V-bed last week, and they had 5 personnel KIA. Then it's like, oh, holy shit, maybe I should pay attention to what's going on. So I really like the idea of that. And very quickly, we'll check here. Is the lobster back with us yet? It looks like no. And actually, let me kind of check on you guys here in chat, because it's kind of hard to read and talk at the same time. Shit ton of news reports. Did it because it was fun? Yeah. Yeah, not everybody is going to enjoy coin. That's for sure. The thing is, for me, we can't continue doing the same thing, if you guys understand what I mean. For anyone that would have, would think that, oh, coin's going to be boring, or, whatever, or, this is lame and this and that, completely understandable. If this is like your first deployment coming in, and, you want to fight a fucking battalion of infantry every single operation because, you just want to shoot a bunch of shit, that's great. At the same time, you have to understand that we've been doing this for 4 years. And every single deployment has been that. There is, aside from the types of vehicles and weapons, which even then there's very little difference in from our deployments. And for some reason my Twitch is dying there and not wanting the video to play. But for 4 years, we've been doing basically the same deployment every single time. Some of them multiple times a year. So for those of us that have been here for a while, we need a change. We can't keep facing a battalion of infantry and, 10 pieces of armor every night. It gets old, especially after this long of doing it. So, like I said, it's not going to please everyone, but for, at least I know for me and some of the other guys that have been here a long time, it's a very welcome change to not do the same shit that we've been doing for years. I don't know why the fuck my Twitch keeps wanting to stop playing the video there. But anyways, so one of the things I want to take you guys through is the Warno for this first cycle of operations. Now, this is generally stuff that you would never see unless you're in the unit. Guys that just go to the forums and create an account don't have access to this. This is only, unit members that have access to this. But I'm going to pull rank basically and show you guys what a Warno looks like for us, what goes into it. Now, obviously, this is not going to be exactly the same as what a fucking warning order would be in real life. It can't be. It's just 90% of the shit in a warning order in reality doesn't actually apply to us in a game. So it's not going to be the same. But I'm going to take you guys through kind of each part of that warning order, how that warning order comes about, what work goes into, actually creating that thing, especially a warning order for this deployment, because as I said, there's a lot more moving parts in this deployment, and you're going to kind of understand what I mean when I say a lot more moving parts, when I kind of break down how all this shit comes to be. So I'm going to minimize the video here, and we'll pause that and go over here to our warning order posted by Myers. Now, Myers is one of our battle captains. Now, you guys primarily know Myers for as my assistant in OSET. Myers is my assistant instructor. So you guys know him quite a bit from there. As I said, he's also one of our battle captains. So what is a battle captain? Battle captains are basically our overall, I guess kind of, not really dungeon master, but they're kind of the ones that come up with the overarching storyline for deployments. Now, as I said, a lot of this is being quarterbacked by me. Our battle captains are in S3. I'm the S3 chief, so I am technically kind of their boss. Not really. Technically, Drum is their boss because he's the S3 OIC. But he prefers not to know any kind of the background workings of what's going to happen in the operations. I personally don't really care. It's me. I care more so about the guys having a good time. So I don't give a shit if I know what's going to happen. So most all of their direction is coming from me. So that being said, still, battle captains kind of come up with the overarching storyline of the deployment. Not everything is pre-planned. We don't know week by week what's going to happen. That's dependent upon the task force's performance. If, they give us, if the battle captain gives us a mission to go here and secure this position, and we try to get there and get repelled and we can't secure the position, that may have an effect on the next task force's mission. It may have an effect on the next cycle of missions. It may not have a fucking effect at all. That's entirely up to the battle captains to decide how they want that to play out in the overall story.
Or if the POWs are being held next to Tunguska.
Yeah, and if all the POWs get killed by fucking cook-off, which is now like a standing thing within S3, don't ever put a fucking vehicle that can explode next to any type of HVT or hostages. Or also, maybe don't put a mortar tube next to a, 60-foot tall structure that has the HVT in it, and then fire the mortars and kill the HVT.
I did that. That was me. Can you see? Hey, bro, I sent you a message on TeamSpeak.
Oh, all right. Hold on here. Look at that. Now we got Mrs. Lobster with us as well.
I will PT you all until you fucking die.
So, as I grab a drink of my monster here. So, as I said, break down this this Warno for you guys. So, the first thing I want to talk about is what you see right at the top there. You also see it in the top left of your screen. And that is kind of our deployment patch, if you will. This is something that's done for basically every operation. Units will come up with a deployment patch that they'll wear. And It's kind of a thing within the military community to collect these deployment patches. Whatever every deployment that you've been on, you got those patches to kind of brandish, if you will, as I was with this operation, this operation, this operation, so on. So we've had one of these for pretty much every operation we've done. Now this one specifically, the reason I want to talk about this is, firstly, you would be amazed how much time and work goes into just creating that fucking patch. You may think, well, it looks really fucking simple and so on. It is. It's fairly simple. However, the patch originally started out very fucking different from this. I think the original proposed name for the operation was, or for the deployment was Operation Iron Shield, I think was the original proposed name. Personally, I immediately said no. Reason I immediately said no is because anytime I hear an operation name with the name Shield in it, I immediately think back to 1991 and it's fucking Desert Shield. So no, it wasn't happening. And then there was one like proposed idea of like Desert Dust or some shit like that, or Desert Sand or something like that. I can't remember. Which I again shot down because anything with the name Desert in it makes me think of Desert Shield. And I also told them there will be nothing with the name Freedom in it because that automatically makes me think of OEF and OIF. So nothing with the name Freedom in it. So eventually we were able to settle on the name of Operation Lionheart, which again took a while. It's like four guys sitting in a room, fucking boom, 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 just throwing out names until someone says, "Yeah, I like that one. Yeah, I kind of like that one too. Yeah, all right, let's go with that one." So yeah, that's how we ended up settling on Lionheart. One of the guys that we were sitting there going through shit with had posted it and said, they posted like 5 or 6 of them, and we kind of mulled around a couple of different ones, and then we finally like, yeah, let's go with Lionheart. I kind of like that. It's got a decent ring to it, so on. So then it was a matter of coming up with the actual imagery. Now, some of it we were able to carry over from the original badge, but the actual image itself, the lion that you're seeing there, originally we had more so of a kind of photorealistic lion, and I sent it to the CO for approval, and which, in case you guys don't know, pretty much everything that we do gets sent through the CO first. It's very, very fucking rarely that myself or the XO will kind of make an executive decision on the spot and say, yeah, go or no go. Almost always it's going to be, well, I got to run it through the CO first. Unless it's something we know he does not want to have any knowledge or inner workings of, which is generally, like I said, the actual operations themselves. So, as I said, send it to the CO for approval. He gets back to me and says the line's too complicated. We need something simpler. Which is fine, completely fucking understandable. So he was like, well, why don't we use a rampant lion? I was like, yeah, that might actually work, because that era of art, or that style of art, is fairly common in military badges and so on and so forth. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that lion specifically, that style of lion, a rampant lion, is associated with kind of medieval style artwork, knights and their shields and stuff like that. A lot of that artwork is very, very common with military badges and heraldry, stuff like that, because it's, one, carried through the ages, and two, it's simple. You can very easily identify it. And yes, Lionheart also makes me think of Van Damme. Wasn't Lionheart the one where he was French Foreign Legion? I think it was. Or no, Loster, you never got into Van Damme, did you? Or did you? No? Okay, Loster's dead again. Great. I think the Rampant Lion might be, can't remember if it's England or Scotland or one of those, but yes, one of them does have Rampant Lion on their heraldry. And Sal did an exercise called Lionheart. Very nice. So, anyways, we got the Rampant Lion. Yes, Richard Lionheart, the Crusader King, which is kind of why we agreed to that name. So we got the Rampant Lion, put it all together, threw it into grayscale for kind of a subdued badge, and that's what we got. What you guys are looking at there. I think it's Scotland. It might be. I can't remember, but I know one of the islands has that. And I seen a question earlier from Stormrise. Did you enjoy the hunt for Sergey or the Stalker operations? Yes, somewhat. The hunt for Sergey would have been a hell of a lot better had Wee-Woo not been a fucking retard and jumped in the hole. I know he was having a bunch of issues. Personally, I think a lot of the issues are caused by the fact that his mission templates are fucky. If you guys don't understand what I mean, guys like Hardman and stuff would understand what I mean. His mission templates are not at the same level as what we generally use. There's a lot more weird scripting and shit like that going on, just kind of weird stuff that I think puts undue or unneeded load on the server. It's not a matter of our server necessarily not being up to snuff. Our server's one of the best fucking servers you can buy. But yeah, there's just a lot of weird shit in his templates that do not need to be there at all. But either way, that's here nor there. But yeah, it would have been a lot better had he not dove down the hole and killed himself. So, moving on with the Warno. I said we got the patch done. So next thing, warning order, Operation Lionheart 0118. Now, a lot of guys get confused by this numbering system and so on that we use. So, how do we decide if it's 0118 and we just got done with an FTX cycle that was 1018? How the fuck does that work? Okay. Well, it's obviously broken down by year. Okay, the 18 at the end means it's 2018. Okay, this is the first deployment that we have done for this this is the first cycle for this operation. Okay, so it's 01 because it's the first cycle for Operation Lionheart. If it's the second cycle, then it's 02, so on and so forth, right? So that's why, say, Operation Thunderstorm, even though it's the same year, it's still 01 because it's a completely different operation. So even though both Thunderstorm and Lionheart are taking part in the same year, they're two completely different deployments, so they have two fresh number scales. Both of them start at 01. But why is our FTX at 10 when we've had two separate FTX cycles? Well, FTXs are not separate deployments. They're continued training cycles. So all FTXs throughout 2018 will go from 1 to wherever we end in 2018 with training cycles. So we could have, if we did another really short deployment and went right back into an FTX cycle, we could end the year at FTX, 26-18 because we've had 26 FTX cycles in the 2018 calendar year. So that's how that numbering system works. If it's a whole new fresh deployment, it starts at 1. If it's an FTX cycle, and we've already had FTXs that year, it continues on from where the last one left off. So hopefully it kind of clears up some of the confusion on that. Now, next thing we have is the dates listed. That's pretty obvious. Task Force Alpha, That's our first task force that goes. They're heading out 19 August 2018. That's, their Sunday. 25th of August 2018 is Task Force Charlie. That's Saturday, 26th August 2018. Task Force Bravo, another Sunday. Pretty simple. Now this is our battle map. Our battle map is basically for us to look at and get a general idea of what's going on. Now, at this point in time, battle map is pretty fucking plain. The reason it's pretty plain is because we have no idea who or what is around here. Okay, so if I blow this up, and Jesus Christ, that's big. That is not what she said ever.
That's what she tells me every night.
Never.
Jesus Christ, that's huge.
Why is it taking forever? Hardman, why is your shit taking forever to load? All right, well, either way, we'll look at it like this. So, to look here, you'll see that we have our HQ and then all three of our task forces. This is at the air base. Okay, so the air base is where we're going to be operating out of. Right next to fucking whatever the fucking name of the city is, Kalanui or however the fuck you want to call it. And you'll kind of get an idea of how big this city really is, even more so here in a second. But you can see, I mean, this is a big fucking town encompassing this whole thing. So
it's like Kavala, basically, right? In Altus. Like Kavala is the capital, right? In Altus, and it's pretty big.
Yeah, it might be about the same size. I'm not really sure. But yeah, so this shows us known positions of both friendly, enemy, and independent elements. So right now we have our friendly elements up north here at the air base. Down south, we know that there is a local military that is based in the south here around their kind of capital area and stuff like that. This is their air base to the south, so we know that they are there. Other than that, we don't know anything else about what's in the area yet. Now, as the deployment goes on, this will start to fill in. We'll start to get more intel as to, who is where, so on and so forth. And we'll kind of go from there. Now, the next part, the intelligence part. This is the thing that has seen the biggest change from previous deployments. Reason being, like I said, I wanted the S2 side of things to get more involved as to what's going on during the deployment. Not just, news stories leading up to it or, news stories while we're in it. I wanted them to actually be involved in kind of the day-to-day happenings. Now, and Kulf actually asked a really good question there. Do you ever get misinformation or incorrect intel? Well, we actually had a whole fucking thread, I guess, where it was all about misdirection. That's why any of you guys that, seen the news stories coming out about, oh, such and such is happening in this country and such is happening in this country. And then it seemed to solve itself and we never got deployed there. That was entirely misdirection. That was just to make guys in the unit that read those stories go, oh shit, okay, that's where we're going next. No, we're not. That's just to fuck with you. Total cock tease on purpose. So yes, stuff like that does happen. So the intelligence section, firstly, we get our basic intelligence of what's going on in the area. I'm not going to read it all out. You guys can fucking pause it or whatever if you want to, read the whole thing. But what I did want to get into is the next part, which is kind of our S2 maps, which is something that, you tend to see. So we have a breakdown of the town. We've got our MSRs marked, our ASR, got a little OSR over there. And all of these roads are named. Reason these roads are named is so you have reference points. This is something that we haven't really done much before. It usually just consists of like drawing a line on a map and being like, hey, we're going to go here or we're going to go this direction, so on and so forth. This is more so for the planning phase. It's not quite as much for, you know, when you're on the ground and kind of in the shit, you know, then it's like, yeah, we're going to move the next block over or something like that. But this is more so for the planning phase, so you can, you know, plan out your route and say, okay, we're going to, you know, we're going to come in along Michigan Ave, we're going to take a right on Main, and then we're going to take a left on Arizona, go up to Colorado and take another left, you know, stuff like that. That's more so for the planning phase. But why that's important? This is shit that's actually done. Like I said, S2 guys name streets and stuff like that all the time. Second reason that they name streets, aside from just being able to reference, is you're not always going to know how to read the fucking street signs of the country that you're in. So if you have a map sitting there in front of you with the roads, and then they're marked with your own names for them, it's a hell of a lot easier to know where the fuck you're going. So it's basically just renaming all, you know, city roads and so on and so forth. Now, S2 is, you know, is free to name the roads whatever the fuck they please. You know, you guys that have seen like Generation Kill, you probably remember the scene where he's talking about his guys in the S2 naming the fucking roads after their favorite titty bars back home. You know, that's real. That's how shit works. Yeah, exactly. ASR 7th Veil. So how did this come about? This is where I want to kind of get into how much work goes into all of this. Now, the battle map up here, huge amount of work because this is constantly being updated with enemy positions, friendly positions, so on. This is on the battle captains to keep their battle map up to date, what they want us to know about, what they don't want us to know about, so on. So this map is constantly being edited and updated and changed. This kind of along the same lines. Every new town we go into is going to have this along with it, a map that has these roads and so on. So how did we actually get this map, so on and so forth? Firstly, go to S3, go to Myers, and say, hey, I need a photo of the fucking town from a drone. Once you have that photo, I need each one of the roads in that town marked with lines with a corresponding, you know, this color is MSR, this color is ASR, this color is OSR, so on and so forth. Okay, so Myers had to hop into game, go into a drone, get up there, take a photo of the town, pull that photo, put it into a photo editing program, and put all of these lines across the roads. Once he was done with that, he then had to send it over to S2. That's our intelligence guys. S2 then had to go through and name all of the roads. Now, on top of that, they also give us the basic intel of the town that you're looking at down here. Okay, so what's the commercial element of it? They've got government offices, 100 small to medium businesses, including a large number of independent traders. Residential, you know, we got 5,000 residents within the city, 1,100 families, swinging numbers during Ramadan, and so on, as it does have a large mosque in the town. What's their military structures looking like in the town? Well, we've got Washington Air Base, which is our air base. We're aware of that, obviously. It's a major military installation, including trading grounds, extensive military housing and facilities. So that's the only military structures within this fucking AO of this town is our airbase. The road network has a single MSR, dozens of ASRs, so on and so forth. The next closest town to it is Ramir, and they are directly connected to each other. Okay, so this whole town workup, as well as the map, is handled by S2. They come up with the town workup, they then come up with the names for the map, and then they send all of that back over to S3, back over to Myers. So then Myers can now include this into the intelligence section of the Warno. Okay, so this is where you start to understand how much back and forth there is, how much working together there is. You know, S3 has to come up with the photos, which in reality wouldn't be exactly how it works, but still. S3 gets the photo, marks it all out and stuff, hands it over to S2, they name everything, come up with the intel for it, send it back over to S3, S3 gets it posted in the Warno. All right, so a lot of moving parts here. Then we get into the actual mission portion of it. So what are we actually doing here? What's going on in this town? What are we doing? Now, the objective Alpha Bravo Charlie, that is not related to the task forces. It doesn't mean Task Force Alpha is doing Objective Alpha, Task Force Bravo is doing Objective Bravo. No. This is just simply, throwing a name on it real quick. We as task force commanders, myself, the XO, and the CO, decide which task forces are doing which objectives. It's entirely up to us which ones we want to do. So we have OBJ Alpha, which is basically just a show of force patrol. We're going to push into the northern part of the city there, or what I think is the northern part. I can't even actually tell from there. But we're going to push into that section of the city and do a show of force patrol as NATO forces, which is who we're kind of coming in to bail out as NATO forces, have been harassed in that area. So basically, we're going to go walk up and down the streets, dick swinging, and anybody that wants to challenge us gets shot in the face. Objective Bravo, we're going to be setting up a two-way roadblock here at this large intersection of the MSR of Michigan Ave, or MSR, Michigan, whatever. Now, the reason this is going to be a lot different than even what you guys seen with Task Force Charlie with the checkpoint, which did not go the way it was supposed to go, is again, this is going to be a two-way checkpoint. This checkpoint is much more secure, much more built up. It was previously a NATO checkpoint. I have already seen the photos of this checkpoint, and it is probably the most realistic checkpoint I've ever seen done in ArmA. And that man right there, Mr. Hardman, is the one that built it. So come whenever it is we do Objective Bravo, whichever task force it is that does it, and you guys see this checkpoint, I promise you, it will blow your fucking mind, because I've seen a lot of, quote unquote coin operations, checkpoint operations, so on done in ArmA. Nobody's ever had a checkpoint this well done. Not this realistic. I've been through checkpoints almost identical to this thing. It's genuinely impressive how well it's put together. So, and you guys know how fucking rarely I give compliments like that. So, believe me, it'll blow your fucking wig back. Next, we have OBJ Charlie along the bottom here. That is going to be a coordinate search. So very much so like what you guys seen Task Force Alpha do a couple of weeks ago when I was the Task Force Commander. That night mission that we had that was really fucking good. It's going to be along those lines. We're going to push into that area of the town, cordon off portions of it, search for any type of weapons, anything like that, and then deal with it from there. So those are our three objectives. How are those objectives decided? Basically, me and Myers sit down and say, okay, what do we want to do this cycle? And that's it. That's really the only, like I said, vast majority of the shit is coming from my fucking twisted mind. A lot of the operations, the ideas for them, how they're going to be played out, so on and so forth. A lot of that shit is coming from me drawing on my personal knowledge and experience. So hopefully it goes right. Because if it goes wrong, there's only one guy to blame. And that's me. That's all there is to it. Even at the end of the day, if Zeus fucks up, that's my fault. Because I didn't explain to them how to do it properly. Except for Loster. If he fucks up, it's 100% his fault. Like turning the fucking sun on in the middle of the fucking night. Like an asshole. Which means he's not there. Because he would be defending himself right now. So, moving on from the objectives here. Execution. Okay. Notice it only says Task Force Commander Discretion. That's it. Nothing big or anything like that. Reason for that being, it's entirely up to us how we're going to carry out this mission. Now, why that may be weird for some people, especially guys who are military, who have been in a combat unit, so on. shit don't roll like that. Task force commander or a company commander, more realistically, company commander will come up with a plan of how he wants to pull off this mission that he's been tasked with. He'll then take that plan to battalion and get that plan approved by battalion. He doesn't have oversight on everything. You know, the company commander isn't the end-all be-all. He's got fucking superiors that he has to answer to as well. So company commander would take that plan to the battalion commander and say, you know, hey, you know, major, colonel, whatever, this is what I'm thinking. And then the battalion commander would make critiques, you know, say, hey, yeah, I don't really like this, or you're not going to get the helicopters to do that, or you don't have the air support to be able to pull that off, whatever. Go back to the drawing board, bring me something else. And then company commander would go back, he'd sit down with his staff, you know, and say, okay, we got to come up with something else. We only got, you know, 4 helicopters on hand instead of the 8 we need for this mission or for this plan, so we got to come up with something where we're only using 4 birds instead of 8, so on and so forth. Then they go back to battalion, eventually get the shit approved, and then they're good to go. For us, we don't have that because we don't have the battalion oversight. We're only a company level element. We don't have any battalion command. So it's completely up to us. It's up to the task force commander's discretion. Now, the command and signal, all that's fairly simple. You know, what elements are going to be involved in this, what hostile elements are possible, so on and so forth. It's, you know, fairly straightforward. And then breaks down, you know, smoke and stuff like this. What the spray paint is used for is what we do with civilians, and so on and so forth. This is all kind of your standard stuff that's included in every one of the Warnos. Nothing of that changes. The primary difference for this Warno is the inclusion of this stuff, the S2 stuff. Now, on top of that, like I said, we're also going to get even more intelligence at the start of the mission. So when we go to start the mission, before we even step foot off of that airbase, we're going to be briefed as to what S2 is going to relay to us, what's going on in that area. So S2, if we're going to that checkpoint, S2 is going to brief us on what's been going on at that checkpoint, what NATO forces were dealing with at that checkpoint, what kind of, you know, engagements they had, if any, so on and so forth. That's all going to be relayed to us via the S2 brief before we even step off foot or step off from the airfield. So that's going to be really fucking cool for me. And that shit is going to genuinely be important. Same goes for subsequent intel that comes out via the INSCOM reports that you guys see in the newsrooms. You know, we've already had some stuff come out there, and I'm actually going to bounce over and show you guys some of that stuff as well. So here on the forums, if you go to the newsroom and go to the 506 deployment updates, you'll see these INSCOM intelligence reports. Hostile faction brief, stuff like this. This stuff is important. You need to pay attention to this shit. There's a reason it's pinned. This is the kind of stuff that, you know, in reality, you would, you know, have a intel packet on, and you would sit there and read that stuff back to front, forward to back, so on, and learn it by heart. Okay, so like the hostile factions brief here. Okay, we go through, and this breaks down what the known intention and so on of the factions are in country. So, you know, we have Al-Qaeda, we have Tally, so on. This breaks down what they're doing in the country, what they expect to gain, so on and so forth, some of their capabilities, stuff like that. Now, as we go through the deployment, obviously we'll be able to gain more intel. We'll be able to gather more intel via stuff that we pick up, you know, EPWs, terps, so on and so forth. Obviously, that stuff is going to be simulated. You know, we don't actually have terps, mostly because none of us can speak fucking Arabic. But we'll be able to gather more intel and be able to figure out who some of these players are. And maybe we'll see some fucking profiles on these guys and know what they're capable of. So we have our different factions breakdowns. Like I said, what their fucking abilities are, what their known abilities are. Next, we have our provinces. This country is broken down into these different provinces. This was a big thing that I wanted released. Reason being, you learn this shit and you can start to understand what parts of this country are, a little more rowdy than others. And how do we do that? Each one of these provinces has a workup as to what's in that province, what the terrain is like, what the, focal point is. This being FAFREG, or FAFR as I like to refer to it. This is where our air base is at. This is where Colorado Air Base is. This is where the big town is that we're going into in the first cycle. So this is what we're going to want to pay attention to. We know that fucking the main town that we're going into is there. Majority of forces are NATO forces because they're also based at Colorado Air Base. We have friendly military, or native military, as well as Taliban and Al-Qaeda forces in the area. So we know we have to keep an eye out for these guys. Our threat level is elevated. Okay, because we know NATO forces have been being harassed in this area. That's the whole fucking reason we're here, is that NATO is being harassed and so on. So we're going to have an elevated threat level. Now, some of the other regions, I'm not going to keep going back and forth, but like this region, we know the terror threat level is high. So a higher probability of, being engaged, and especially being engaged by like more dangerous elements, i.e. V-beds, SFS, shit like that, when the threat level is high. Now, if we move down, this one is severe. The largest province, known as the Free Land, I kind of refer to it as the Wild West because the entire western side of the country. So this whole western side of the country is kind of their happy hunting ground, if you will, and has a severe threat level. So that means anytime we're going out west, it's fucking on, because that's their land, that's their home. So anytime we, get close to or cross that fucking line of departure, we're stepping into their ground. So it's going to get gnarly if and when we head out west. So this stuff, these provincial breakdowns are important. So you've got Mazaria down south. It's minimal. That's where the capital city is. That's where the local military is based. So the threat level is minimal down there, as we're not, you're not going to see tally forces, attacking local military in a frontal assault. So these kind of breakdowns, like I said, are really important. I, highly suggest that you guys read these, learn them, love them, so on, and get really acquainted with how this is broken down. So how did this come about? Why do we even have this? So on and so forth. Well, this was basically released to us a couple of days after our redeployment order was issued, which was Sunday night. Sunday night after Task Force Bravo, our redeployment order was posted. So basically, as soon as we came in out of the field on our training exercise, boom, we got our redeployment order. Pack your shit. We're stepping off. Now, and apologies, I'm getting some drinks delivered to me here. Some
what?
Drinks. Liquids.
Oh, drinks. Oh.
That's right. I got delivery service, motherfucker.
Hey, babe, give me some drinks. I want some drinks.
Tell him to suck a dick. Apparently, Loster is back now.
I've been here.
Oh, you weren't fucking speaking up at all.
This is you, buddy. This is your whole. You're the S3. This is all you. I don't know what's going on.
Well, you can still fucking give your input on it. You've been through pretty much every
A
fucking
lot.
deployment that the unit's ever been in. In fact, I think you have been in every deployment we've been in.
Well, I missed like Black Brat, all that other shit. I came in at Crimson Moon.
I thought you were in Righteous Eagle for a minute. I thought you filled in
No,
from
I filled
reserves.
in. I filled in once or twice, but
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought you filled in. All right, so we'll kind of get into the differences between the deployments here shortly, but I want to break down for you guys how this came about, how we have, the provincial breakdowns, how we have the faction breakdowns, so on. Is that this stuff was released a couple of days after the redeployment order. So basically, the RP side of it, we get our redeployment order, we pack all of our shit, hop on big ass planes, get sent over into country. Generally, it's about 36-hour breakdown. You can put guys pretty much anywhere within 36 hours, if not less. So gave it a couple of days, and then we drop this intel. This is basically mirroring the intel that you would receive as soon as you get in country, breaking down, what the country is, what type of terrain you're dealing with, what the focal points of these provinces are, states, whatever, what the civilian populace is kind of like, so on and so forth, what the threat levels within these areas are, and then as well breaking down who you're dealing with. What do you know about the political factions, military factions, so on and so forth, would all be included in this intel that you're going to receive once you get in country, which is why this was released a couple of days after the deployment order. So we get all of this, and then the next day we get our Warno. So the Warno comes out that we've, all looked at over here, and now we can break down into more kind of a micro level. So you got the macro level of all the provinces and what's going on in those. Then you go into the micro level of, okay, this is the AO we're operating in. Here's the intel we have on this area, so on and so forth. Then we're going to get into an even smaller level when we actually go into game and get ready to step off on this operation. Then we get the very minute details as to what's going on in our specific region that we're responsible for in this town. Because in case you guys haven't figured it out from looking at these pictures, this town is so big, we are breaking it down into 3 separate sectors, one for each task force, which that's generally how it's done. Now, granted, in reality, you would, have all 3 task forces in the town at the same time. Sometimes, not always, obviously. If you were, assaulting the town, yes. If, the town is already held by friendly elements and so on, you're just going out on patrols. Generally, you're not going to send the whole company out on patrol. You'll send 1 platoon, and then you'll have a couple of platoons back as, QRF or whatever you may need them for. Just 1 platoon's going to go out with their platoon leader, so on. Maybe, the CO will go with them, or the first sergeant or the XO will go with them. But, yeah. Anyways, breaking the town down into 3 sections. So then we're going to get a brief as to what's going on in that very, very small part of this very big town. So hopefully now you guys are kind of understanding how this intel works. You zoom in more and more and more and more dependent upon where you're operating, so on and so forth. So, you have the primary intel of who we're dealing with, where we're dealing with them at, and so on, and then you just keep zooming in from there. Now, all of this stuff, the INSCOM reports, coming up with these maps, writing all of this stuff, this is all through S2 and S3, everybody basically working together. There's been a lot of information that has to be passed back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and sometimes multiple fucking times. But again, at the end of the day, I have to go through and look at all of it and say, yeah, that works, that works, that works. No, that's fucking stupid. No, that would not happen. That works, that works. Let's change this a little bit. Okay, yeah, that'll work, but let's change this line, so on and so forth. So it's a lot of moving parts. Like, I can't stress that enough to you guys, how much shit is actually going on behind the scenes for this deployment. And that's why just last week, or actually this week, I don't even fucking remember anymore, we had a meeting with all of the Ares operators. The main point of that meeting for me was to tell those guys to basically rely on each other. If someone's not going to make it and you need your position covered for that night, rely on one of the other Ares operators. Don't fucking call me. I have too much shit going on. This is why. So you guys may be able to get a little bit of an understanding as to why, even right now, I may be a little short on fucking memory or patience or so on. Aside from the fact that, I have like 30 some fucking people that I'm responsible for and all the battalion stuff and all of that shit, I have to look over every single little scrap of this shit and make sure it's good to go before I sign off on it to be a part of basically my deployment. Because the XO and the CO, that they don't really, this isn't their gig. Like I said, this is my baby. They've just kind of, their palms are up like, hey, do what the fuck it is you please. If it fucks up, it's on your head. So yeah, it's a lot of fucking work. A lot of work. So we've never, ever done a deployment with this amount of detail to it. Not that I've seen. And I've only ever missed one deployment, and it was an incredibly short deployment at the very start of the unit. So I guess that's kind of where I want to get into discussion with you, Lobster, because I know, we've talked a little bit about how the deployment is going to go and so on and so forth, and obviously some of the trade secrets and stuff we're not going to talk about in terms of how we do Ares operations and stuff like that, but I do want your opinion on kind of what you think thus far of not just the overall idea of the deployment, but can you, as someone that's been doing this for a long time, can you notice the difference between kind of how this one is starting up, how this one's shaping up at the very start in comparison to other ones, or does it just feel like another deployment for you?
No, it's 100% different. I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe we've ever, if I remember correctly, every task, every operation we've done, every deployment we've done was always like such and such is tensions are brewing on this in this shithole, and now this such and such big dick army is now in charge, and then we have to like invade the island. I think every deployment has always started with us invading an island.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, we're not. We're already there, and we're just showing
NATO
up.
forces are already there.
We're NATO's already there.
Yeah, we're coming in to aid NATO.
Right. So that's. I mean, I can go all the way back to the 15th.
Yeah, we're not assaulting an airfield right at the fucking start.
Right.
We're
right.
not.
It's not.
Which
it's
always
not,
kind of annoyed me that we always had to fucking assault airfields, because that's what the Ranger battalions were created for. Quite literally, that's what Ranger battalions were created for, was to seize enemy airfields. So in reality, we wouldn't be doing that shit. We would be sitting back in like Greece, waiting for the Rangers to airdrop on these motherfuckers, seize the airfield, and then we'd come riding in like C5s, and everybody hop out and be like, okay, let's go fucking march and take this fucking country. But yeah, please continue. Sorry. Or don't continue. Okay.
No, hold on. Go ahead.
Okay. So, yeah, exactly. In reality, you'd bomb the fuck out of it first. Well, you'd bomb the fuck out of part of it. You wouldn't want to hit the fucking tarmac at all, or any of the taxiways.
Okay, so yeah, the difference being like, so I outlined that originally. I can go all the way back to the 15th. I remember almost every deployment. I mean, most of that's like recorded of my ArmA 2 days and shit like that. And it was always the same. It was It was always like in fucking the Pacific. It was always like Pelelu, you know, just
Mhm.
land on the island, make a beachhead, secure an airfields, and now we can start doing shit.
Well, see,
And
I think that's, and sorry to cut you off again,
oh
but I think that's, again, that I kind of alluded to earlier. A lot of guys don't realize, especially guys that are, like E3, E2, whatever, that may think like, oh, this coin stuff is boring and, I want to fight a fuck ton of guys and kill a bunch of armor and stuff. Again, a lot of guys don't realize we've been doing that every deployment here for 4 years. And for years before that. Like,
yeah,
all the way back through ArmA 2. Well, like, guys don't fucking realize that, like, Drum's been playing ArmA for almost 10 years now. And it's been the same type of deployment every time. And you're just, like, I wasn't even in the 15th, but I know how their missions were done. Because they're still done the same way.
Yeah, there's these huge grand scale missions, which is fine, but it's always been like that.
Yeah.
You have armor, you have fucking AAVs on there, you got CAS, you have fixed wing, and then you got a platoon, and it's like, and some maps have like fucking what you call it, the special forces, whatever the Marine special forces is.
Oh yeah, the Raiders.
The Raider, yeah, it's like you have all this shit going on, and it's like there's just hundreds and hundreds. Oh, for the tanks alone, it was like when we had Brawler in here. You had to spawn like 100 guys just for the tanks to kill, and you know what I mean? It's like, who the fuck are we fighting? Who are
Right.
we?
Well, and that's another thing is, some guys have mentioned the kind of the loosening of the reins in terms of the, quote unquote PvP aspect from us as Ares. What they don't realize is that the reins haven't loosened at all. In fact, they've fucking tightened, if anything, because there's even less fucking PvP allowed than what there ever was before. But at the same time, the reason that guys think there's more PvP going on is because there's more fucking remote controlling going on. There's more AI that are being controlled by Ares operators, which is why I had to go through and hire 9 fucking Ares operators specifically for this deployment. I didn't hire them because we were short on staff. I didn't hire them because, for shits and giggles.
Right.
All the new Ares staff was hired because of this deployment, and specifically because I needed more AI being controlled. Why did I need more AI being controlled? No, it is not because the Ares operators are more accurate than the AI, are aiming down their sights, are chucking grenades all the time. In fact, the vast majority of the time, I fucking rip these guys' assholes apart for throwing grenades because it's fucking ridiculous the way that a lot of guys use grenades in a total suicidal fashion when they're remote controlling AI. So Loster can fucking speak from experience. I have yelled at guys for using grenades more than anything.
I used a grenade over a wall and I got yelled at for it only because it was like I heard them talking, and that's not fair. Like you can hear the other guys talking, but
because
in reality,
we have to use voice communications.
Yeah,
we don't have a choice. But what is happening is because the AI is being remote controlled, the AI now has the same mental capacity as a real person.
Right.
So they're not just going to stand out there in an open street and engage you and wait for you to fucking zip them up with 5.56.
Exactly.
No, they're going to move. They're going to maneuver. They're going to flank you because that's what they're trained to do.
Yeah. And in the defense of, like, I know, I haven't heard it recently, maybe because now I'm an Ares operator, so people get all hush-hush about it. But, like, I haven't heard it recently, but there used to be a lot of complaints where, like, oh, they're just fucking dropping us over and over. Like, a lot of times, the only time I'll ever shoot someone directly is if, like, they're in a position where they deserve it. Like, if they're way out of position, if they're not... I'll give you an example. Like, when we did that squad training with 1-4, and I created that, like, funnel of death down the alleyway with the PKM, and I wasn't going to shoot anybody, but people
but they stepped right in front of you.
Yeah, they were walking right into this lane of fire. What am I supposed to do? Like, not shoot them? Like, that's one of those examples where we're trained and we're instructed to increase immersion by opening up on you guys. There's tracers flying around. You can hear snaps and pings going off near you. But we're only really going to hit you if, like, you're just
if you fuck up and you're out of position.
Yeah,
You're
or
not.
like vehicles. We try so hard not to blow up vehicles because it's really easy to hit them. Even like the best trained task forces can't prevent every RPG from getting fired. So it's like we try so hard not to hit vehicles. But if there's a vehicle, like if you're just standing there and you're an RPG deployed and your vehicle is just looking at you like, duh, like, oh, sorry, like it's, or
Yeah,
if it's like,
oftentimes before we, we'll fire 1 or 2 RPGs before we accurately engage. In fact, we always fire an RPG or 2 before we actually directly engage the vehicle for that reason, so that it
right,
gives them time to react to it. You use your fucking ears and say, oh, it came from this direction. I should probably move the vehicle over here so it's covered from that direction. And after the, second shot or something, and they don't fucking move the vehicle and they're just sitting out there in the open, it's like a fucking 12-year-old kid with an RPG-7 can make this shot. I can't logically say, no, he's going to miss again. Like, no, it's not going to happen. And yes, assault the insurgents trained. The fucked up thing is,
they do train though. I mean,
well,
obviously
it's
it's not as good as like what we do, clearly, but like
well,
they
the
do
thing is,
train.
it is though at the same time. And what I mean by that is, those guys are trained in combat. They're trained by combat veterans. You have to remember these guys have been fighting since the 70s, nonstop. They've been fighting since the 70s. So the guys that have survived have just as much, if not more, fucking combat experience than any fucking ground troop that we have. On top of the fact that now, just our involvement in the conflict has been going on for 15 fucking years, and even longer, really. So
the guys that were like teenagers, like when the Russians invaded. I mean, those guys have been fighting like two of the biggest armies in the world, Russia and the United States.
So they do have legit fucking tactics that they use. Granted, it's not as good as ours. They don't have the equipment that we have. That's why they're going to be incredibly fucking inaccurate with AK-47 fire. That's why our Ares operators aren't even allowed to aim down their sights unless they're using a marksman rifle, something with an optic on it. Otherwise, they have to fire from the hip. Now, granted, at the same time, after a long time doing it, you tend to get pretty fucking accurate firing from the hip, which is why oftentimes you guys see me, especially with a saw, just drop guys from the hip.
Yep.
Because I've done it so much, I know where those rounds are going. Same thing happens for us as Ares operators. We have to actually limit ourselves. We have to think in the back of our mind, okay, I have to spray this thing a little bit more to simulate the adrenaline flow and so on that this guy would be going through. I can't be fucking laser accurate with this thing like I could be if I wanted to be, because it's not realistic. So, at the end of the day, I guess technically there is more PvP, but it's not so much PvP, it's the enemy being fucking smart because the AI within ArmA is so retarded. And that's another one of the things that makes this deployment, or is going to make this deployment, so much different, is the fact that we're not facing masses of infantry waves coming over a hill. We're not going up against a couple companies of infantry. We're going up against 50 dudes. And 35 out of those 50 dudes are going to be remote controlled by our Ares operators. So they're going to maneuver on you. They're going to flank you. They're going to hit you where you're not expecting it, because they know how to maneuver. They know how to lean around a corner and make the most use out of cover. The AI won't fucking do that. So it's going to be more fucking difficult. Even though we're facing less forces, it's going to be more fucking difficult, because you're going up against people that know what the fuck they're doing. You're not going up against the retarded Bohemia AI that are just going to, like I said, stand out there in the open at 300 meters, standing and try to fucking shoot you. Yes, that's still going to happen because we can't remote control every single AI. But the reason for that is people are too fucking complacent. Way too complacent. Guys take risks that they would never fucking take if that was an actual human enemy. Guys go out in the open. They get in one-on-one gunfights. They move with, no cover whatsoever, no concealment. They do a lot of really stupid shit that we train them not to do, but they do it simply because they know the AI isn't going to do anything about it. There's guys that'll stack outside of a building and just sit there for 20 seconds, 30 seconds, waiting and waiting and waiting for so-and-so to call their set or whatever. Because they know for a fact that the garrisoned AI will never come out of...
Yeah, they don't move.
Yeah, they won't move. Well, when it's controlled, they will. If you cross that threshold with your barrel and don't breach, or you open that door and don't breach, they're going to go out the back door and come around and flank and shoot all of you in a fucking file stacked up outside the fucking door. Because you opened that door and sat there for 20 seconds while somebody got their comms on fucked instead of breaching, and that enemy's going, well, I ain't going to sit in here and just get fucking killed. I'm going to move. So, yeah, it's going to be more fucking difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, I mean, you can't do what you can't do with the AI, like the street-to-street, alley-to-alley, corner-to-corner combat that's going to be happening. You can't do that with AI. It just doesn't work, because as soon as they spot you, like it's just a restriction of the game. It's like a bottleneck of the game is the AI in certain situations where it would be so great. It's frustrating when like AI in like an old Ghost Recon game is better than the AI in this game. But
Yeah.
I honestly like the AI in Tarkov, despite its bullshit, like it's pretty fucking good when it comes to the scavs that shoot back at you and shit. It's pretty because they displace, they try to flank you. Like it's really good. But that being said, like you can't have the engagements that you're going to be having during this deployment with the AI.
No.
You're not going to have like the task forces are going to have dudes like you're going to have like simultaneous remote control guys just opening up on you down a street like dual PKMs.
Not even just in an urban environment. I mean, you look at Task Force Alpha from a couple of weeks ago when you were Zeusing, and we had kind of set that up beforehand to have the machine gunners just kind of spraying bullets down at us, inaccurate as fuck. But I can't stress to you guys how realistic that is. They'll engage fucking 1,1800 meters out there with iron sights. They know it's fucking snowball's chance in hell that they're gonna fucking hit anybody. But they also know our react contact procedures. They know we're gonna stop and get cover. Now they also know we're probably gonna call in bombs on their ass. But they know that at that range, we as infantry are not going to be effective. If we can close that distance, they're fucked. If it's one guy with a machine gun and he's 1,800 meters out, he can pin us down because we're not going to move out in the open on that snowball's chance in hell that he does hit somebody. So we're going to set up. We're going to get behind cover. We're going to call in air on him or whatever. Well, in the 30 minutes or so that it takes air to get there, in reality, he's already fucking gone. Now, for us, it's obviously a little bit different.
Yeah.
It doesn't take us that long. Yeah. And he's held us up. He's distracted us from whatever it is we're doing. That's the thing that I stress to all of my Ares guys is like, number one in your mind needs to be harassment. Not engagement, not full frontal assault, anything like harassment. You're not there to stop us. You're there to delay us. You're there to harass us. You're there to make our lives shitty so that we don't want to deal with it anymore, which is pretty much exactly what they did with Task Force Alpha with those machine guns up there. It got to a point that all the guys on that eastern flank were fucking fed up, and that's exactly what I want. I want those guys to get pissed off. I want them to be like, fuck this guy.
Yep. I had Tell on the eastern mountain range, and then I had Aaron in the northern range with the marksman rifle, and they were just peppering 1-4 like crazy, and they weren't hitting them. But
no, it's just annoyance. It's like a fucking bee flying around your head, And eventually, we called in air on them. I fucking basically carpet bombed the entire fucking hilltop between air assets and mortars, and fucking destroyed everything up there. And then we pushed up there and cleared it out, made sure everything was good, and it was. Aside from fucking Garcia trying to take the guys into Pakistan. But
Yeah.
the same thing happened with Task Force Bravo Sunday. We had 2 marksmen lock down the entire fucking ground element. Now, there was some mistakes from the ground element as far as not being able to spot them and this and that, but it further proves the point. 2 guys that were remote controlling and were not being as accurate as they could be. They fucking pegged me a couple of times from me making stupid mistakes, popping out and knowing, or at least pretty sure, that they had that corner locked down. I was pretty damn sure they had that corner zeroed in perfectly. But after getting, hit or rounds very close, like 2 or 3 times, I was like, yep, this corner's fucked. I can't spot anything from here. I need to move. And that's when you guys seen me pop smoke and me and Dunn get across that gap over to the other fucking building there that had a little bit better cover from them. But that was absolutely perfect. I mean, 2 guys with marksman rifles locked down an entire fucking, basically reinforced infantry platoon. That's realistic as a motherfucker.
With thermals. With like 6 thermal optics.
And air assets.
Yeah.
Like, that's incredibly realistic. And you can't do that with the AI. You cannot do that with the ArmA AI. Just not going to happen.
Yeah.
It has to be remote controlled. So, situations like that. And, I was talking to Williams and the guys afterwards, Williams being the Havoc 2 platoon leader. There was one point when we first started getting engaged by those marksmen. Me and Dunn were up on top of this building, and really honestly, it was a stupid position to be in. We had no cover from anything around us. The town's down in a fucking bowl. Everything around us has elevation. But either way, we took an accurate shot up there, and Dunn launched off the fucking roof of that building. If you guys were watching last Sunday, I mean, you probably remember how quickly that kid got off that fucking roof. And I actually made a joke about it, that if he would have fucking launched off that roof any quicker, he would have needed fucking takeoff clearance, because he was gone, dude. The second that shot hit close to him, he was fucking gone. He was off that rooftop. And I was still laying there like, what the fuck? Like, I should have been gone too, but it was so sudden, and just like, it made me chuckle, because I was just like, god damn, I have never seen someone react to fire that fucking quickly, especially from a rooftop. I mean, he basically just like dove headfirst off that rooftop, like, I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Dunn's got his shit together.
It was great. I was laughing pretty good from it. So to get back to kind of the differences from this deployment to the others, in terms of the kind of the S2 stuff and like the intel that we're getting, and like I said, we're going to be getting S2 briefs before we step off on the mission, which obviously you haven't seen that yet because nobody has seen that yet. But do you ever remember a deployment that made the intel relevant? Because personally, I can't. Pretty much any mission I ever remember going into, the intel really didn't matter. It was always just a matter of go here, kill things.
The intel was always kind of incidental, I think. Where the missions that did have intel, it was more like a means to an end. Where like, oh, we found intel. Okay, this is where that guy is. Over here, according to this intel. It was just more of like a means to, now we know where to go next, kind of thing. Where it was scripted, basically. But yeah, I don't. To my recollection, I mean, I've never really found intel. I was never the guy that found the intel, so I couldn't speak to if it ever made a difference. But at least from what I've seen, I don't think it really made much of a difference. Like in the bigger picture of things,
right?
Like the same things would have happened whether or not this laptop was located, or this this PDA was found, or whatever.
Well, I think even at the lower level, it's been a while since I was just at like a fire team level. But like when we were going through Red Hammer, the Churnerist deployment, intel never meant dick to us at a lower level. Like we didn't care really where we were going, what we were supposed to be doing, because we knew all it consisted of was go to this town, kill the bad guys, sit there until 10 o'clock and, deal with counterattacks, and then done. Like that was our mission pretty much every night.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
There was slight differences, like with, us losing the airfield. Like, obviously that was cool. That was something completely different. It wasn't cool that we had to deal with that much fucking armor. But it was something different. It wasn't the traditional, all right, go assault this, repel counterattacks for 35 minutes, and mission complete. Which more often than not is what it is, just in a different area. So that's where really we're trying to differentiate things. That's why on something like a show of force patrol, we're not going to be fighting fucking 3 platoons of infantry. It's not going to be immediate fucking gunfights and shit going on. Where we do checkpoints, like, even though this was a very poorly fucking performed operation on the Ares fucking standpoint, and they got fucking yelled at for a while after
I'm glad
this.
I'm glad it wasn't me. I'm happy that I wasn't there for that.
We're attempting things that we've never done before, or that we've done very little of. Like I said, primarily to change things up. But at the same time, believe me, these situations can be just as tense as shit that we've dealt with before. Like with Task Force Bravo, like when those marksmen had us pinned down, that was a fucking tense situation. At least for me, it was.
Oh yeah, it was.
We were locked the fuck down. We could not do anything. With Task Force Alpha, when we were moving through that town, like when we were clearing that IED factory, like I was on point for everybody clearing that IED factory. I didn't know what the fuck was in there. I didn't know, if there might have been somebody with an S-vest inside the fucking building. Nothing. Like, the entire time, I'm rounding every corner like, all right, here we go. This is it. This is where I get blown up.
Right, and it's because it was different. That's why, you know what I mean? Like, it was different than, like, what it usually is. The only thing that was kind of, like, by the books that is always done is that I opened up on you guys a little too early with the marksman. Like, I made that call a little too early. Imagine if I would have drawn you guys in, like, get you all the way into the courtyard of that that IED factory, and then opened up,
Mm-hmm.
trigger an IED like a booby trap, or just
Right.
like trigger like and then use the explosion for an ambush.
Yeah, and we talked about that, afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this is more so how it would have gone down. And that's really why one of the reasons we started doing coin training in the FTX. It wasn't just to get the guys prepared for coin. It's also to get Ares operators prepared for coin. Because again, this is completely different than anything we've ever done as Ares operators. It's a completely different fucking mindset and completely different way of doing things. So we have to take, basically a full fucking 180 from how we used to do things, which is, all right, let's spawn in, 6 squads of infantry and send them over the hill at them and, lead them to their slaughter. Like that was basically SOP for us. Like, just keep throwing bodies at them until 10 o'clock.
Yeah, and there would be a point where it's like, even as an Ares operator, it's like, is this fun for them? Like, the whole sending
Right.
wave, I'm like, how do I make this fun? And it's like, my mind wasn't in the right place to like make that more engaging. And then we had we had to talk. I did some more research, and I really thought about like what we were gonna do next. And then I got moved to Task Force Alpha, and then that's when we did that night mission with the IED factory. And that was where I really like, I put a lot of like thought into how can I make this different from everything that I've done before, and how can it actually be fun.
Right.
And I think that me, Aaron, and Tel all putting our heads together, I really think that was a good, like, that ended up being in the ballpark of like exactly what you were looking for, and I think exactly what the platoon with the task force as a whole was supposed to experience.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you've seen the message. We've had, I guess, kind of praises sent up from from guys that were there, like, hey, that was a fucking outstanding mission. Like, that's what I expected, out of coin. That was fun as fuck, so on and so forth. So there was really guys that enjoyed that. Which is why, when you go to Task Force Charlie, and it's such a contrast, and it was total clusterfuck of a mission from the Ares standpoint. When you get that in comparison to what Alpha got, it's like, what the fuck? Why would I want to do coin? This is stupid, But that's why, at the debrief, that's why I told everybody, like, this is not, this was not indicative of how things should be. Everybody's learning. It's not just you guys, it's the Ares guys as well. And one thing I wanted to point out real quick is I remember when we were clearing that IED factory, I had seen out of the corner of my eye somebody questioning whether I should be on point as the task force commander and the first sergeant. That is very much so kind of leadership style difference. There's some leadership who, say, hey, if I go down, things go bad, fucking, I need to stay in the back so I can practice command and control, which is perfectly fine. That does work. I'm not the type of person that subscribes to that. And there's kind of two reasons for that. One, every platoon element is, especially now, trained to be able to do my job. That's one of the big reasons that we did that whole FTX cycle of 2IC training and having the platoon elements step up and do, the job of a task force commander. You always want to try and, as best you can, train the guy below you to do your fucking job, because you never know when he's going to need to do it. Two, I have never been a fan of any type of leader. This isn't just talking about, military leadership, combat leadership, or anything like that. I mean, this is whether it be your fucking manager at work, your fucking supervisor out in the field, whatever. I've never been a fan of the leadership style where, because that guy is in a supervisory role, he thinks he doesn't need to do that job. He's above that job. I hate that. If you, as the direct superior, are not willing to fucking lace them up and get in there and do the work, you don't deserve that fucking job. If you're not willing to put yourself in the same situation that you're ordering other people to put themselves in, you're fucking useless. You should not be supervising someone if you're not willing to do the job yourself. In my eyes, the whole reason you're in a supervisory position is because you're more willing than anyone else to put in the work. So you have now been put in that supervisory position to disseminate that type of attitude down to your subordinates. So if you're not willing, in this situation, if you're not willing to go on point, if you're not willing to kick the door in, why are you there? If you're going to send other guys to do it in your stead and not do it yourself, fuck off.
Yeah, it's not an excuse to, like, put your feet up. Like, in case people weren't aware, like, I've been reinstated as a squad leader in Havoc 2. So I actually have, like, official responsibilities now on top of being a Zeus operator. So realistically, yeah, I could delegate everything to my squad if I wanted to. Here, do that, take care of this, do that. But, like, what kind of example am I setting if I'm just sitting here fucking around on the Android the whole time? Like, basically texting and looking at thermals while, like, not leading by any kind of example. I try to take point whenever I can when my team leader isn't running in front of me telling me to get the fuck back because he doesn't want me to be on point. But yeah, I that's the same way. It's like I wouldn't order any of the dudes in my squad to do anything that I wouldn't, like, do myself. Like, if there's a tank coming, give me the AT4. I'll fucking shoot it if I need to. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like I'm not above any of them. It's just I happen to be the guy that's wearing the hat that says that I'm in charge.
Right. And Heckman, that is a fucking total lie. Never got shot as a platoon sergeant. I want to point something out here, since Heckman is in here in chat. A lot of you guys probably don't know Heckman because you were not around at all when Heckman was here.
Very elusive.
Yeah, the elusive wild Heckman. A lot of the leadership, I guess, qualities that I practice, a lot of that may not necessarily come from Heckman. A lot of that was, instilled by other, elements of my life. But we have always seen very, not necessarily eye to eye. We've had our disagreements. But when it comes to the men, the guys that we're responsible for, me and Heckman have always agreed that they come above everything else. Does not matter. The guys are what's important. So, despite the statement he made there, I will tell you guys, one of the reasons that Heckman was the best platoon sergeant that we've ever had, he practiced more than anyone that he would not send guys into a situation that he wouldn't go into himself. Reason being, every single time, he was right next to us. In the bridge mission that you hear us talk about all the time where, we got overrun by armor and stuff like that, Heckman was sitting next to one of my anti-armor gunners more. They were about 50 meters out in front of me, pinned down behind a little tiny fucking rock. A rock about the size of what you're looking at right there that Illyri's sitting behind. The two of them were pinned down by a fucking tank. Could not move. They were laid out dick in the dirt. Moore had no AT rounds left. They had resided themselves to death. But Moore wouldn't leave his side. I hit Moore up on the radio and said, hey, if he goes, both of you go. And Moore said, basically said, absolutely. I'm not going anywhere. Even when Heckman had got hit in the legs, and Clark went out there and picked him up, Heckman's telling him, leave me, we can't both go down. And he said, no. He wouldn't leave him out there. Same happened pretty much in my first FTX as 1-4 actual. First time running my squad. Heckman was out there with elements of 1-1, I believe it was. And they got fucked up and they got surrounded. And Heckman ordered us, we got the order to break contact and pull out. And I refused the order because Heckman was still out there. We couldn't pull back. 1-7 was still out there by himself. So I set up half of my squad on Overwatch and the other half of us went in after him and pulled him out. Now, as I said, the reason that's fucking important is because I still do the same exact thing. Like Heckman said there, first in, last out. You'll notice every single time I'm the task force commander, I will always ask, what's the first bird going in? Why? Because I'm going to be on that bird. And I'm going to be the first guy out of that fucking bird. Especially if it's a Chinook, I'm going to be sitting on the ramp. Because I am going to be the first one touching that soil.
The Mel Gibson.
Yeah, pretty much exactly. I mean, it's the total mentality of Hal Moore. If we extract via birds, I am on the last fucking bird. I am the very last person to load up as task force commander. If I'm not coming back, or if one of my guys isn't coming back, I'm not coming back. And if I'm not coming back, nobody's coming back. Because if there's one squad left out there who's pinned down, we ain't going home. We're going back after them.
We've done that as well.
Yeah, we have.
I remember it was the FTX, I think, where remember we took off and there was like a fire team or something left behind.
Yeah,
so we fucking turned all the birds around.
Yep, due to a technical issue, which I knew at the time it was a technical issue. Just one of the guys couldn't get into the birds, whatever. But I wanted to use that as a teaching point. That we don't leave anyone behind. We're sure as fuck not going to leave an entire fucking Blackhawk behind. So that's why I told the fucking pilots, turn us the fuck around. These Blackhawks are now gunships. We're setting up security around that fucking LZ and getting them out of there. So we turned the entire fucking flight of birds around and went back. And like I said, I knew it was a technical issue. I knew it was just guys couldn't get in the birds. I knew I was going to have them teleported, but I wanted to make sure everyone understood, like, you guys don't know for sure that that's what's going on. We're not taking that chance that it's just, oh, they've got wounded and they're not able to get loaded up. You know, we're going back for them. We're not just going to carry on our merry way because we're getting fucking extracted. That's not how this works.
Right. And there's not a single like fucking like American Armed Forces, like not a single fucking group of individuals would do that either. You know, they would never leave them behind. Like for any, like they're always gonna go back.
Yeah. I mean, again, look at those guys that loaded onto the side of a fucking Apache to go get somebody out. They used an Apache as a troop transport to go pull somebody out. But anyways, to get back to the deployment, in terms of Lionheart doing, coin and all of that, for you as Ares, like I said, this is a huge shift in our mentality as Ares, how we have to operate, how we have to do things, so on. And I did see, I think it was Kerr mention about Ares listening to friendly nets. And yeah, like what was explained in there, we listen to the nets not so that we can make tactical decisions based off them, like we're hacking their radios. It's more so just so we can get a feel for the task force, how the guys are doing. If they're just getting MCI after MCI, we're gonna rein it back a little bit so guys are still having fun. But I want to ask you, Loster, as Ares going into this and having to create a completely different mindset. And I know we've talked about this a little bit more, but now that you've done it a couple more times, do you? How do I want to word this?
I think you're attractive. Absolutely.
Well, that's kind of a
no
given.
question. I would literally just let you do whatever you wanted.
Well, you wouldn't really have a choice, but I'm just saying they can't say no if they're unconscious.
Does this smell like chloroform to you?
Yeah. But obviously, and I address this to all of you Ares operators in that, that one message that I sent out that still holds a record for like the longest message I've ever sent. But it's not about our enjoyment. It will never be about whether we had fun or not. That being said, though, do you find from an Ares perspective, do you find it any different in terms of enjoyment level for you? I know obviously you're always stressed out because you're going to eventually fuck something up and then I'm going to yell at you. But do you find it any more enjoyable? Like, do you find yourself having to think more and kind of employ, not necessarily your training, because you're not trained to be an insurgent, but kind of your experience or what you've learned so far. Do you find that more enjoyable than sending or doing like the traditional operation of companies of infantry and a fuck ton of armor?
Oh yeah. You have to think way differently than you have to. It allows us as Ares to really focus on things that we otherwise would never have focused on. A prime example would be the Task Force Alpha mission, the night mission that I did.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're doing coin, the number of OPFOR on the map is considerably smaller than it usually is, as opposed to fighting 200 plus guys. You're fighting a few dozen, right?
Right.
That doesn't mean it's any less threatening or dangerous. It just means you're not pulling the trigger as often. It's still just as it's still, if anything, I would say we make it more tense because you don't know
Where it's coming from,
right.
or
Not
when
only
it's
do you
going to hit.
right. Not only do you have threats from outside, but you have threats from inside as well because you have civilians that can get pissed off, and they decide that they're going to pick up an AK and rock your shit. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like that's part of it. The second part is that because we're spawning less, because we're generating less units, it gives us an opportunity to do things that we couldn't really do before, which is attention to detail. Aaron, I started building that mission. That was what, Sunday. I started building that mission
I think it was like 1800 or so, maybe 1730.
Yeah, maybe like 5:30. I think. Yeah. That's not, the mission starts at 8 p.m. Eastern. I started at like 5:30. I think because I had to do something else that afternoon as well. Oh, I had my first squad training for 2-1.
Oh,
Was
yep,
at
yep.
so that was from 4 to 5:30, and from 5:30 to 8, I was building the mission. Anyway, Aaron spent he was with me almost the entire time, and I believe he spent almost that entire time fucking building the IED factory. He built he
Yeah,
went
putting all
into
the
that.
paraphernalia and shit inside the
Yeah,
factory,
yeah.
which you guys may or may not have noticed. I mean, it depends on how much you were paying attention to kind of my peripherals as I was moving through that building. Like, I seen the shit as I was moving through there, but at the same time, I'm not gonna like stop and stare at it. Like, I'm on point clearing a fucking building. So I definitely noticed it. I don't know how much you guys were able to really notice it watching, but like I could see all the fucking paraphernalia laying around on the tables and on the floors and shit like that. That's why like the entire time I was just, every time I came around a corner, I was like, here it is. This is where I get blown up. That, this is where the building gets fucking collapsed on our heads. Like I was just waiting for it the entire time.
Yeah. And I don't. I mean, we didn't want to. Because there's another thing is that we have to take into consideration: is this really fair? You know what I mean? Like where I could put an IED like just about anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
but am I gonna put it somewhere where they can't see it? That's not fair. Am I gonna put it somewhere where they're gonna step on it no matter what I do? That's not fair. I can't blow up the factory because if there's like a fire team or a squad in there, like how there's
Yeah,
no
how's that
way that they
fun
could
for
have.
them?
Right. And there's no way that they could have prevented it. Like maybe if they saw maybe if we could try to put a ticking bomb in there or something,
Mm-hmm.
or like clearly placed explosive armed charges, and that they have to
Right.
get out of there before it blows up, kind of thing. But
And that's I've I've heard, or not heard, but I've seen people make the argument because, this is obviously something that we've addressed at an HQ level all the time, especially using IEDs and stuff like that. That's why, we've done training on them. That's why we show guys what they look like and stuff like that. And people are like, well, in reality, you never know where an IED is going to be. It could be anywhere. It could be hanging in the fucking window of a house, one of the directional IEDs and shit like that. And, they bury them, they hide them, you can't see them. That's why they're so dangerous. Yes, it is, absolutely. Realistically, the threat of IEDs is way fucking huger in real life. Like
yeah,
without
I've
actually having dealt with them yourselves, or had the threat of them yourself, it's genuinely hard to convey how scary they really are, and why a guy that's acting shady generally has about a second or so to fucking show that he's not hostile or doesn't have any type of hostile intent before he gets fucking dropped. It's not like reality for us where in game we have a lot more time to react to things, so on and so forth. And I've seen people make the argument when Drum says, we have to have a way to counteract it. And it's like, well, in reality, you don't always have EOD that you can call. You don't always have an engineer that you can call, so on and so forth. You can't counteract everything. Yes, that's true. Absolutely 100%. At the same time, you have to remember you're talking about a voluntary thing that here people are here to have fun. You have hundreds of people involved in this that are here to have fun,
yeah,
not to get blown up in the first 10 minutes of a mission and then sit there and wait for reinsert. Or if it's their second time getting fucking blown up, they don't get fucking reinserted at all. They're done for the night. Like, that's where you have to balance that fun and the realism aspect of it.
that's why our IEDs. Even if we use a large IED, it's a small explosive. It'll knock down like 2 people, maybe. It's not. It's got like a 5 meter radius or something like that, or like a 10 meter, whatever, 5 meter explosive radius. It won't. It won't KIA them. It'll knock them out, and it's like, oh fuck, I got blown up, and then they get back up again. They get patched up and everything, and
Right.
they're back up and they're back up and mobile again. But
And
like
that's
they're
but that's another reason though that they are still very fucking dangerous to us, especially like V-beds and shit
Sure.
are still very fucking dangerous to us because you have to remember, okay, one of those things blows up. If there's a fire team or whatever, or even say we'll go on a big scale and say there's a squad, an entire fucking squad for whatever reason that gets hit by an IED when they're rolling in one of our gun trucks. Okay, somehow this IED is big enough to hit that entire fucking gun truck. No, everybody inside that vehicle does not die instantly. We don't use
No.
bloodlust or anything like that, right? Okay, so they don't
Right.
instantly go KIA. They all get knocked out. Okay, so they get knocked out. Our bleed out timer immediately starts. Our bleed out timer is fairly short. It's like under 2 minutes, I believe. Hardman, you'll know since you handle the mod pack shit. Please post that in chat there. I can't remember exactly what our bleed out timer is, but it's fairly fucking short. And there's criticism that comes from that. Like, why do you guys use basic medical when it's realism? And why can't you guys instantly die? This and that. Okay, in that scenario, you have 10 guys that get knocked out. That's now 10 people whose bleed out timer is running. You've got 2 minutes to get 10 people up. Less than 2 minutes. I believe it's 90 seconds. Or around there. Obviously, if you do CPR, it does increase the time. Actually, it might be 100 seconds.
It also might depend on the severity.
Yeah, the severity also does come into play. But still. So we'll say if guys are able to do CPR, we'll say 2.5 minutes. Okay? 2.5 minutes to get 10 people bandaged up and conscious. All right? Well, they just got blown up inside of a truck. That gun truck is carrying a 50 caliber heavy machine gun. Now, because Ace are fucking douchebags, every single one of those 50 cal rounds are now cooking off. Oh, by the way, we carry 8 boxes of 50 cal in our gun trucks. And yes, that is fucking realistic. So, before you can even approach that vehicle and start pulling guys out, you have to wait for that ammo to cook off. Otherwise, there's a good chance you're going to fucking catch a 50 cal round, which is fucking ridiculous. Or even worse yet, if it's a Mark 19 truck. So you have to wait for that cook-off to stop. So now you've just lost a minute off that 2.5 minutes.
At least a minute.
Now you've got 90 seconds to get 10 guys up. Oh, by the way, one of those 10 guys is a medic. So now you've only got 3 medics in the platoon and the company mic. You've got 4 dudes that are capable of pushing blood. You've only got 2 guys from each squad that are carrying CLS, and they're only carrying 2 morphine and 2 epi apiece. So even if you call the entirety of the rest of the platoon down there, you have very limited medical supplies and even less time to get all of those guys up.
Right. And if they've lost a lot of blood, you can't just push epi or morphine and get them up.
You have to give them blood first.
You have to transfuse them.
So now, you get up there, start going to work, set up the CCP, and start medicing everybody. Oh, by the way, the entire time this is going on, you're in contact. You're being engaged by hostile forces.
Yep.
So some of those guys, they can't aid medically. They've got to set up security. Oh, by the way, while you're doing all this, one of the medics catches a stray bullet from an AK-47. Now he's down.
Yep.
Now we got to get him back up. Oh, and this fire team over here just got hit by a GP-25. Now 3 out of the 5 guys over there are down. We now got to work on them. Oh, your 90 seconds is still burning on the 10 guys that were in the truck. Okay, so out of all the wounded that just happened in 2 separate MCIs, 6 of those guys go KIA. Because you only have...
It's not unheard of.
Right.
Like, in what we do, it has happened.
So 6 of those guys go KIA because there just wasn't enough time. Okay, that's fine. Guys go KIA. You would expect that, right? Again, you've got to factor in the fun portion of it because our operations are 3 hours maximum. Our cutoff time is 3 hours. We have gone beyond 3 hours, but once you hit 3 hours, nobody is required to be there. If our operation hits 3 hours in length, you can disconnect with no repercussions whatsoever. Just leave. You're good to go. Nobody can say a thing. So, say out of a 3-hour operation, that happened in the first 20 minutes. Well, the 20 minutes prior to that, there was no contact. It was just you getting going. Okay, so 20 minutes in, that happens. You've been knocked out now for 2 minutes. And then you go KIA. Now you respawn back at the airbase. Respawn, get your kit, get everything set up. Now you wait for reinsert after everybody else has respawned and gotten back there. Okay, so now you reinsert. Oh, by the way, the LZ's too hot, so they can't bring the bird in right on top of the task force. You've got to land a click and a half away. So you fly the 5 minutes to the LZ a click and a half away. You land. Now you have to walk a click and a half just to get back to the task force. You walk the click and a half, get back to the task force. Okay, now we're going to move out, and they head out, and you carry on with your mission. Oh, guess what? That just took a fucking hour and a half for all of that to fucking go down. Between the 20 minutes of getting there, getting blown up, getting reinserted, walking the click and a half, maybe dealing with some light contact in the process, there is half of your mission gone, and you have shot no one. Sounds like a good time, doesn't it?
Sure. It's happened to me. No, I wasn't a very big fan of it.
So the reason I go through all of that, okay, when guys have what they think is the brilliant idea of, hey, we should use advanced medical. I think it would make it more realistic. I think it would make it more difficult, so on and so forth. That's great for you.
Both of those are true.
Yes.
Both of those statements are true.
That's great for you and your 8 buddies that play ArmA 6 days a week, and you can play for 6 hours at a time. When you blow that scale up and play with 60 people that don't have that kind of time, it falls apart. It does not work.
Like, and I'd like to, like, especially someone like me who, my free time is like, it's so like
non-existent.
Non-existent, yeah. Like, it's except for like at night, but throughout the course of the day, like I can't do shit. And it's like, for these missions, like, okay, if you're just like a weekend warrior or whatever, like you show up when you're supposed to show up. There's tons of guys in the unit that are like that. Williams is like that. Cherry used to be like that. He would show up when it's time to show up.
Yeah.
He didn't have time any other time of the week. So every Friday he'd do his squad training, and then every
Sunday,
other Sunday,
but yes.
or Sunday. I mean, every Sunday he'd do his squad training, and then every other Sunday he would do his platoon or FTX, and then every Wednesday he did the squirrel mission. Like, so, we're talking, a couple of nights a week that he had time for this. Now for operations, there's a 2-week gap in between. So like, you're waiting 2 weeks for a mission. Can you imagine waiting 2 weeks for a mission? You finally get in, and that shit happens to you. Or you finally get in and get shot on the first contact, and we have advanced medical, so it takes like 20 minutes to get you back up. Like you waited 2 weeks for this, and now I'm just staring at a fucking blank screen.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's been a lot of discussion as to how we can make things different, make things better, more challenging, but at the same time make them funner, so on and so forth. And, usually once a year or so, the debate comes up about advanced medical and stuff like that. And believe me, like, this is years, literally almost a decade of doing this for some of us. We know what we're doing. Like, the kid that bought ArmA 6 months ago and is like, yeah, we should use advanced medical because it's much more realistic. That's great. You haven't been doing this for 5 fucking years.
Right.
You just got out of fucking high school. You're on your summer fucking vacation. You've got all the time in the world to play ArmA. You can play for 6 hours a day. You can do a 5-hour long operation. That's great. You can do a one life operation and everybody get KIA and be like, all right, let's do it again. We don't have that choice. We don't have that ability.
If we had that shit, if we had like one life operations, like if our FTXs and our deployments were like one life, dude, our fucking numbers would tank. Like, there's no way. There's no way. No one's gonna sit through that. No one's gonna put themselves through that just to wait that whole fucking time. Just to, oh, I died. Well, fuck. There goes my whole fucking Sunday. Like, I waited for nothing.
Yeah, or like Heckman's saying there, 2 weeks of training to hold a blocking position on that bridge, and we never see the bridge. Like, that was one of the most devastating things for us in Havoc 1, was that bridge mission, because we did. Like, that was when we were absolutely in our fucking prime. All of the squad leaders, the platoon HQ elements, like, we all meshed so fucking well, and we did a ridiculous amount of planning for that FTX. I mean, we were scoping things out, figuring out who was going to be exactly where, who was covering what sectors, what we would do in the eventuality of this happening, so on and so forth. Like, we had every inch of that AO planned out as to who was going to do what within it. And it all immediately went out the window when that fucking tank hit us, and then shit just started streaming across that bridge. Which, yes, things like that can happen. Shit can happen and throw a wrench in your plan, but on that scale, it was just absolutely ridiculous. And that was, one of the big catalyst for a lot of the fucking changes that happened. It was just like, dude, how can you expect guys to put this much work and this much effort into this and it all just be thrown away? Like, yeah, exactly. It was an FTX. Like, the whole purpose of us even being there was to train on this specific thing, and then we didn't even get to do that specific fucking thing. So that's why, like, especially now in FTXs, where if things are going really bad, we'll stop the fucking FTX and pull everybody in and be like, hey, this ain't right. This is how things need to go. That's why even like Sunday, like when I stopped you multiple times and was like, hey, stop doing this, do it like this. We won't do that in a deployment because we're not there to train in a deployment. It's what FTXs are for. But in an FTX, we will absolutely stop someone right there on the spot. We will, if need be, contact Ares and say, lock it all down. Stop all enemy elements, fucking shut it all down. We're doing a briefing. And then sit down and break everything down. And then send everybody back out and say, all right, let's restart. We're starting fresh. This is fucking step number 1. Let's get it done. And then restart everything.
Yep.
We didn't do that before. Like, we would do like mid-mission debriefs, but it was just them going, well, you did this, and this wrong, and, oh, by the way, that was like 45 minutes ago. Well, why the fuck didn't you stop them 45 minutes ago and say, hey, don't do it like this, do it like this?
Yeah, and they don't, and by that time, it's like, I don't fucking remember. It's like, we can't remember the shit that we did, 45. I remember what I had for lunch today, It's like, you gotta address it in the moment. And it's happened before. I mean, when I was doing 1.4s, Margie has stopped squad training. Like, Ares just cut it. I gotta discuss this. Just cut what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we'll pick it up later. And that's more. In reality, that is more work for us. But I like this job, and I don't mind doing that. Like, my job is to give the squad leader I've kind of like loaned myself out to squad leaders if they need a Zeus operator. My job is to give the squad leader an opportunity to actually spend time with his squad.
Yeah, exactly. So he's not trying to fucking Zeus it himself.
Right. That's what it's for. I mean, there's 9 of us now. So there is a little bit more leeway for us to be able to do this. But it all comes and so much of that is like is the task force. It's one of the other reasons why, I think Hardman addressed it. Why we listen to comms is it too hard?
Yeah,
are we hitting them too hard?
Which, don't get me wrong, there are situations where you're pre-briefed as an Ares operator. Hammer them, break them.
Yeah.
Which we tried to do it in a realistic way. There was one time where it was my job to break Task Force Bravo. That was actually the operation where those fucking hostages were killed. My job was to get them off of that fucking hilltop, and I couldn't. I couldn't make it happen. They held. I could not force them off there. The only way I could have is by being even more ruthless with the mortars, which I refuse to do because I've been through it. I've done it. I know what it's like when Ares is a complete fucking douchebag with any type of IDF. And I refuse to put my guys through that. Because at the end of the day, everybody in the fucking company are my guys. And I refuse to let them go through the same thing that we went through 3 years ago. And like Heckman was just saying, is that, you know, the Zeus operators actually do care. And believe it or not, that's true as fuck. Back in the day, when we had truly fucking malicious douchebags as Ares operators, they got their fucking rocks off by fucking us up and killing us and so on. My Ares operators now, they feel bad if guys go KIA. So they're like, fuck, man, now I just ruined that guy's entire night.
Yeah, that's my fault.
Yeah.
You know how many times I've done one, because I've done 1-4's trainings quite a bit now, and how many times after the training I'm like, you know, hey, I dropped somebody, I'm sorry, like, and like Dale and like they'll yell at me like, don't, like, your job is to make it hard for us. Stop fucking apologizing. Like, make it harder next time. I'm like, oh, I feel bad. I don't want you to be unconscious for the whole time. Like, you know, it's the same thing. It's like, I want these guys. The bottom line is fun, and it's like, because I know what it's like to be miserable. I know what it's like to be miserable during a mission. I know what it's like to be utterly fucking unhappy during a mission, and it's not a good time for anybody. Because you're a miserable piece of shit, and you're making everybody else a miserable piece of shit with your misery.
Yeah,
like it happens
exactly
a lot.
like Heckman just said. You know, like fucking Zeusing McDouchebag back in the day. You know, when he would hear me make the call, you know, 1-4 is black on AT, and that generally meant everyone was black on AT by that point. That's his cue. Like, oh, this is our chance to fuck them up. Let's send more armor at them because we know they don't have any AT. We won't fucking do that now. And even like Biggs is saying there, that how I was ruthless on 2-4 and on the hill at the end of Thunderstorm. That was, believe me, that was far from ruthless. That was me using the artillery computer, putting rounds around you. Back in the day, had that been one of the other Ares operators, they would have been using the fire support module and dropping rounds directly on top of your head, right, one after another.
Rocket artillery.
Or if you were moving, that artillery unit would somehow have the fucking clairvoyance to put the rounds right in front of you with it timed out perfectly so that they would land just as you got into the fucking blast radius.
Yep.
That's what we used to deal with Ares operators. We would be mid-movement, and they would drop fucking artillery in a line right in front of us, knowing that at our pace, by the time those rounds hit, we would be right in the center of that impact zone.
Yeah. And I don't care who you are, like, you're not fucking Eugene Sledge. You're not gonna, like, coordinate, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's no... The whole point of IDF is that it's not... It's accurate, but it's not... You're not shooting fucking bullseyes here. Like, they don't... No one's that good, you know? Like...
Well, I mean, they are, but at the same time, they shouldn't be. Like, you guys hear me all the time yell at Havoc 4, you know, spread your rounds out. Give more dispersion on them. Because you don't want, even when you're trying to, you know, hit an enemy, you don't want 4 of your rounds in a fucking 20-meter radius. You want 4 of your rounds in a fucking 100-meter radius. Those things have a big blast radius on them. IDF isn't necessarily... It's not a precision tool, you know, it's not a scalpel, it's a fucking sledgehammer. You hit them with IDF, and then you clear them out with the fucking scalpel, which is infantry.
Yep.
You know, it's not there to completely eliminate the threat. It's there to hinder the threat, and then give you, you know, basically give you overwhelming firepower. So if you hit, you know, a squad of infantry with IDF, by the time you send your infantry squad in there, there's only 3 of them left. So you've got overwhelming firepower. Like, that's the whole purpose of it.
There was... The instance, I remember it was the first FTX that I got to Zeus. It was for Task Force Bravo, and I discovered the suppression module, and I put it on the Mark 19,
Oh yeah.
and I accidentally put it on. I accidentally put it on A, full auto, and B, like 30 seconds. And I was watching
Yeah,
this
you
happen. I'm like, oh fuck,
you felt like shit
oh
about that for
no,
weeks.
oh no, they're fucking. There's so many Mark 19s going off in that whole fucking platoon. I felt awful. Like, oh
And it
no.
really
And
didn't
then
even cause that much damage. Like it
no,
really
nobody got
didn't.
hurt.
It didn't fuck anybody up. But that's the whole point, though. Is even though you didn't fuck anybody up, like you still felt bad because it was like, oh my god,
Yeah.
I just fucked up. Like that could have killed an entire fucking squad, and it would have been my fault. As where back in the day, it would have been like, oh shit, I missed them. Let me try that again. So I actually hit right in the center of their formation.
Yep.
Like that's
It was
seriously
the
how shit used to be, and you know, it's. I'm glad that guys now don't have that experience. At the same time, I kind of wish they did so they could understand how different things are now, how much better they are now. But at the same time, you know, like I said, I'm glad they don't because they didn't have to go through that shit. They didn't have, you know, months of, you know, fucking headaches after an operation. I mean, when I tell you guys that I used to have a fucking headache every other fucking Sunday night because of just yelling and screaming on the radio and just being in shitty, stressful situations. Like, it's no bullshit. It was like that every single night for us as Havoc 1.
Yep.
And, you know, nobody gave a fuck. Like, there was no remorse whatsoever.
Right. You'd hear like, did
You know,
hey,
nowadays,
guys have a good time?
yeah, nowadays, if Loster fucks up as Zeus or Myers fucks up as Zeus, after everything's said and done, after all the debriefs are done, generally, you're going to see that Zeus operator down in that platoon debrief saying, hey guys, I'm sorry. I fucked up.
Yeah, I
That was
did.
100% my fault. I
I
apologize. I fucked up.
Yep.
Not once did that ever happen with us. Never.
I did that. I've done that every time.
One time did I have an Ares operator come to me personally, not come to the entire platoon, but came to me personally and asked me my thoughts on how he did his Zeus. And it wasn't a good situation. But either way, you know, never would you have seen a Ares operator addressing an entire platoon saying, hey guys, I'm sorry, you know, 2-1 got fucking completely decimated. Like, that was my fault. That was a mistake. Will not happen again. That shit did not. No, that would have never gone down back in the day.
Like when I turned the sun on, like fuck.
Yeah.
Like I felt.
Well,
And then,
even something as simple as what you guys are looking at now, you know, Task Force Charlie's FTX, where, as I've said multiple times now, that was not at all how that FTX was supposed to go. Me, as you know, the first start, you know, handling all of the Ares stuff, I directly addressed the entire fucking task force and said, you know, I'm sorry, that's not how that FTX was supposed to go. That is not indicative of how these situations are supposed to be. It will be fixed in the future. Before, it would have been, there would have been no mention of it. It would have just been, well, this is what you got. This is the card you guys were dealt, and you fucked up on this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And, you know, that's it. Ares did nothing wrong. You know, that's, believe me when I tell you guys, it's just such a huge difference. But kind of the last thing I want to, I guess, go over with you, Loster, from an Ares perspective. What, aside from talking to me, because obviously we have, you know, quite a few discussions and shit on, you know, tactics and things like that we should see from the enemy and stuff. What do you do to kind of prepare or increase your knowledge on, you know, insurgent tactics and things like that to, you know, to be able to kind of quarterback these operations? Like, do you watch documentaries? Do you read, you know, FMs? Are you, you know, what do you do? How do you learn how to change to such a drastic mindset difference in terms of, you know, previous operations compared to now?
sure. I read. There's a couple of FMs up on Google that I looked at. I forgot what they were called, but they're basically like dictionary definitions of what insurgency is and what counterinsurgency is. The different types of insurgency. I read a couple Wikipedia articles about the kind of shit that goes down. Um, I watched I watched some stuff on YouTube. What's his name? The guy that does a lot of the U.S. Armed Forces, Funker. I've
Oh
watched a
yeah,
lot of his
Funker. Yep.
shit. Where because he puts up a lot of gunfights. This is like the first time we went into Afghanistan, gunfights and shit like that, like gunfights between the United States and the Taliban.
Yeah, he's got all kinds
Uh,
of great fucking videos.
so a lot of that, and just like okay, so the last mission before the Task Force Alpha mission, where I was still Zeus for Task Force Bravo, that was an example of a mission that was I did it wrong. It was supposed to be coin. It wasn't coin. It was just as Myers. I think Myers worded it best. I backslid. I backslid into an old habit, which we've been doing for years.
Right, which was
Of
just spawning squads of infantry.
yeah.
Which
So
is why I want to point out real quick though, after that FTX got done, obviously me and you had a discussion afterwards, but I asked you a question, a very simple question at the end of that FTX, and that question was, what was the difference from tonight's FTX in comparison to every other FTX we've done for the last 3-4 years? And the answer
yeah.
was nothing. And that was the problem, because that's what we're trying to do, is have a big change in what we're doing. So I wanted to point that question out, because that's really what we have to keep in mind the entire time is this different from what we've been doing for 4 years? No, then I'm doing it wrong.
Yep. And then I immediately the week after was the fun op, which was whatever. Like you can do whatever the fuck you want on a fun op. I built an FOB. I spawned a bunch of guys. It's for fun, just give
Blew
the
up
guys
the
something to shoot at.
HVT with their own
Yeah, I
fucking
blew up the
mortars.
HVT. Yeah, with their mortar. Yeah. I spawned a fast mover for Soto to get a fight with. There was helicopters in there. There's all kinds of shit. I just threw everything at the guys, but that was for fun. So that's just to
It
blow
doesn't
off some
matter.
steam. Yeah, there's no debrief. There's no critique. It's just, did you guys have fun? Okay, go on, get the fuck out of here. But then the week after was the night mission, and it's like I spent that entire 2 weeks thinking, okay, whatever I just did, I need to do the opposite. So what's the opposite of what I just did? What's the opposite of that kind of mission? And it's smaller, it's more focused, it's more tense. It's doing more with less, basically, or maybe accomplishing the same result with less.
Yep.
And you have to think how you can do this. Because it's a dilemma. How can you entertain an entire task force for 2.5 hours with 40 guys, with 40 bad guys? How are you going to pull this off? And you have to think unconventionally, because if anything, what we've been doing for the past 3 or 4 years has been nothing but if anything, it's been conventional. Yeah. You're fighting against platoons of infantry. You're fighting against mechanized infantry. You're fighting against tanks. You're fighting against anti-aircraft, planes, helicopters. It's like we can't think like that for this. So it's
something that even the U.S. hasn't been engaged in that style of combat in 15 years. We haven't gone up against tanks since we first invaded Iraq 15 years ago.
Right.
So it's been almost 2 decades since even the U.S. military was, engaged in conventional warfare.
Right. So you have to think about how do I take this? How do I take what I have, which is less, and still make it engaging? Well, you do that by it's a much tighter group of guys. It's me, it's Aaron, it's L, or it was me and Tosco and Redmond before, and we were coordinating shit. Tosco, get on that techie, and I want you to fucking harass the task force. Don't just sit there and shoot at him. I want you to fucking move and shoot at the same time. Or you put one guy in the driver's seat, and you put another guy on the fucking dishcum on the back of the truck, and you harass, you pull around corners. You don't just stand there and let them gun you. You know what I mean? So it's shit like that to keep the task force.
Yeah, you have to be a lot more surgical with it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, with us being able to remote control more shit like that, because we have 2 extra personnel, like you said, you have one guy driving and one guy gunning. Now they did that before. Clark and fucking Richardson did that before with a BTR. And they're laughing and fucking joking the entire time as they're basically running over our guys with a BTR. Obviously, that doesn't happen now. The reason that you have someone driving someone gun is so you don't end up with a fucking AI gun truck that's, hauling balls 80 kph across, through the fucking woods or something and runs into a tree and breaks a wheel. The
Yeah.
normal retarded AI shit that you see. You
Yep.
can make it a lot more realistic with two people in that vehicle. The same goes for, even if I remember one night, I think me and Garcia were in a fucking like an MBT or something. Actually, it might have been, no, it wasn't during the Fun Op. It was during Crimson Moon. I think, I can't remember. Anyways, the two of us were in an MBT, and I was directing him where to drive via what I could see, and I was like, okay, stop here. Like, we're close enough. We don't need to fucking drive right up on top of this squad to fucking engage. We've got a cannon that can engage from 2 clicks out. I'm not going to drive up, 200 meters from them or 50 meters from them just to, scare the shit out of them or try and run them over or any stupid shit like that. Like, that's not how a tank would fucking actually operate. So anyways, for you, like you said, you've kind of done your research, watching documentaries and stuff like that, and watching videos from Funker and so on. Do you think that because of the research that you've done for the Ares side, now being a squad leader again, do you think that's better prepared you to train your guys on how to combat the same shit that you're, putting up against other squads?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I'll give you a prime example. And I want to be clear that I'm not throwing anybody under the bus when I say this. This is strictly just a suggestion that I made, and it has to go up through my COC. So as a squad leader, I was doing squad training, and I was looking. I'm like, hey, what's to stop the AI from like picking up guns and just shoot? What's to stop? What's not the AI, but what's to stop a civilian from just picking up an AK off the fucking street that an insurgent dropped and just using it against us? And
Right.
then my Ares side of my brain started going like, oh, that's a good idea. Like, why don't we just do that? Why don't we just, And then I started brainstorming as a squad leader, not as an Ares operator, but as a squad leader. What can we do as an infantry unit to stop that shit from happening? Now, obviously, we have limitations because we're in a game. ArmA's inventory system is funky. You can't just pick a gun up off the ground because it replaces your weapon and all the ammo.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're trying to do is we're trying to, if it can be done, there's no guarantee. It's just something that we're brainstorming. If we can figure out a way to like maybe strip the mags out of the guns that are on the ground, so that if a civilian does get it in his head that he's going to pick one up, that he can't use it, because that is something that we do. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, we do collect weapons off the ground for that reason, but we also pull the mags out. At a minimum, we'll strip the mag out, and then we'll also pull the what is it where you disassemble it, the AK, and pull the thing out of the back, the spring.
Yeah. Yeah, you take the bolt and
You know,
everything out of it.
yeah. So like we've been trying to. That's just me, like thinking, okay, as an Ares operator, how am I gonna fuck with these guys? Okay, now as a squad leader, what can I do to maybe counter that? Because it's gonna happen to me. I'm not always an Ares operator. I'm only an Ares operator for one task force, so I'm at the mercy of two other Ares operators for Bravo and Charlie. So it's like, and I don't know everything that they're thinking, and they don't know everything that I'm thinking as an Ares operator.
Right.
So it's a matter of like how can I counter insurgency their insurgency?
And that's one of those things, like in terms of collecting weapons and shit like that. Like, we do kind of have that capability because we can place weapons on our backs now. We're technically capable of carrying two primaries, so we could
Yeah,
place our M4 on our back and then grab the AK and then, swap them out and pull the M4 back out and have the AK on our back and take it over to a collection point and drop it on the
yeah,
ground and, say this area is secure. That is something we could do. Like Heckman said, it would be very fucking tedious. Especially given how spread out they are, and you could only grab one fucking rifle per person. You
yeah.
can't,
That's
grab
the
a whole fucking
that's the
handful of them, which is really
yeah.
the pain in the ass. Um, so yeah, it would be something cool to be able to do. It's just, it's not really that feasible for us. You know, you can't pick
Right.
up a whole handful of fucking AKs and carry them over to the big pile and throw them in the pile and, you know, be good to go from there.
It'd be great if you could just like look down and like in DayZ or in fucking like Tarkov or whatever, you can just look down and just pull the mag out. You know, you could just do that. It'd be great if ArmA lets you do that. Like you could just interact with the weapon without actually having to pick it up.
Right.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, you could throw someone in a carry-all, but that means someone has to carry around an empty backpack, and now they're less equipped than they should be because they don't have all the gear they should have. You know, so
It's like Hegman said, it's tedious. It's something cool to think about, but like in what applies to how we play the game,
mhm.
it's gonna cause more headaches than it would dress, you know.
Right. Yeah, and exactly. You know, whoever does pick up that AK in terms of civilian has to be willing to die, and not everyone is willing to go through that.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, some of that has to be simulated just because of our restrictions. You know, like when we went over in the Warno there and talked about how many people were inside that city. You know, if you've got a town of 10,000 people, we can't have 10,000 AI down. It
No.
just doesn't work. I would love to be able to, so we could have bustling streets and all that shit, which makes it even more fucking tense. But we can't. So if we put down 30 AI in a town, maybe 2 of those are willing to pick up a weapon.
Yeah. Maybe
because
like 5,
you have,
I think, is what I'll do. Like
because you have, yeah, exactly. You have to think about the ratio. You know, out of those 20,000 people in the town, how many of them are willing to pick up a rifle and attack what they consider a foreign invader? 50? 30? You know, how many out of that number are willing to do that? So we have to, downscale it. We've got 30 people in the town, then we've got 3, 4, 5 people that are willing to pick up rifles out of that 3,000, or out of that 30 people that are in the town of the simulated 5,000, residents within that town.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of, like, you got to fucking think about that kind of shit as Ares. That's why, like Loster jokes that he's always, stressed out when he's, Zeusing all the operations and stuff. He's always stressed out that he's going to fuck up and piss me off. But I mean, that's kind of true. That's Zeus, hands down, has the most stressful job. And having done every leadership role in the unit, including a task force commander, Ares has the most fucking responsibility. Because especially now with the amount of accountability that is on Ares, we were just talking a little bit ago about how drastically different that is. My Ares operators know now, you fuck up too many times, you're done. You're no longer going to be an Ares operator ever again. If I fire you from a job, that's it. You don't get a second try at it. If you're fired, you're fucking fired. I don't care if it's a year down the road and you say, hey, everything has changed, I understand. No. I do not give second chances. The reason I don't give second chances is because if I've fired you, that means I've already given you multiple chances to unfuck yourself, and you haven't done it. You already used up your fucking lives by the time I fired you. So, and that's not to put more pressure on the Ares guys, or make them think like, hey, I'm the big asshole, I will fire you at a moment's notice or anything like that.
I understand, bro. I think it's very I think there's a very rational approach to it where, like, you've been like, okay, forget that we're in a fucking fake military video game unit, right? You've been in positions where you're responsible for whether or not someone's fired or not at your like actual job. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's a layer of human. There's like you have to be like a human being, and I'm pretty sure you understand and grasp that like this is something that we're all volunteering to do, and you're gonna give us chances. It's not like, oh, I'm the evil cocksucker and you're
well,
fired.
That's why like I said, that's why I give people chances. You know, people may think that, like, when we do the big task force debriefs like this, or even, you know, the private conversation that we as S3 have with Ares operators and say, hey, you fucked up this, and this, it is not to demoralize anyone. It is not to be like, hey, you're just dog shit. You know, you can't fucking do this job properly. If I believe you can't do the job properly, then I would have already fired you.
Right.
If I'm pointing out something that you fucked up, it's because I want you to do the job properly. I want you to do better. I believe you can do better. You need to learn not to do it like this, to do it like this. Not to do this, but to do this. And that's the whole reason I'm pointing out what you've done wrong. It is not because you're just awful and there's no hope for you. If there was no hope for you, you wouldn't be in that position in the first place. Obviously, it's a little bit different at like the task force level like this, when we have to, you know, if we're addressing something that an infantry squad or something like that did, I'm not going to fire a squad leader. That's not my job as first sergeant, to go fire a squad leader. It's my job to go to the fucking platoon sergeant and say, hey, I'm really fucking tired of this guy's name coming up in debriefs. Why in the fuck is he still in that position? This is not how things work anymore. I don't care how long he's been here. He's not doing the job. He's been given chance after chance after chance and still isn't doing it. You need to get rid of him. I'm not going to force you to, but no, we're watching him. And if it comes to a fucking point where he is now a detriment to other members of your fucking platoon and you're not willing to step up and make the decision, then we will have to step in and take care of it. But
is this what you said to Williams after Sunday night about me?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, that was fucking stressful. Oh.
But, you know, like I said, that's the thing, you know, there was pretty much never any type of positive reinforcement back like when I was in Havoc 1, like in 1-4, with exception to Platoon HQ. Company never had anything good to say. It was always, you know, well, you guys didn't do this and didn't do this, which, don't get me wrong, I understand that is the exact same thing that we do. However, at the same time, those guys at a company level, one, never fucking worked with us. They never filled in for squad trainings. They never filled in for platoon trainings. They never filled in with other task forces, stuff like that. They were never at that level.
Are we talking like pre-purge here?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Two, the stuff that they would critique was just absolutely preposterous. Like telling us that we should have killed, you know, guys with Iglas that are 500 meters beyond our front lines, and that's why the Apache got shot down. It wasn't because the Apache fucking flew 100 meters over top of the AO right across the fucking enemy-held town. No, it was because we didn't kill the fucking Igla troopers.
If I could, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, if I could share something that, like a little bit of a reveal for me. When I came back into this unit, that's what I was used to. Going back to the 15th, and then the couple of times that I filled in here, it was like, you'd get a debrief and you'd have like the fucking dude that's like in charge of the entire unit, or you'd have like battalion headquarters coming in, and they'd be critiquing something that like a squad did that they weren't there for. And it's like, and they're not just critiquing, it's like, you guys are fucking retarded. And I gotta be honest with you, when I came back here, back last year in May, I was kind of expecting that. I was kind of expecting to, like, if we had a shitty mission, that we'd do our debrief, then that company HQ would just shit on us, and then platoon HQ would just shit on us, and then my squad leader would just shit on me. You know what I mean? Like, I was just expecting that.
For us, it was pretty much the same, but platoon HQ never shit on us. I can only remember one instance where Heckman was ever, quote-unquote, mad at us, but he wasn't even really mad. He was mad at us because he was told he had to be mad at us. But basically, company HQ shit on us, and then we got to platoon debrief, and Heckman's like, you guys did it right. I'll take care of it. You know, it was always basically positive reinforcement because he knew it was absolutely ridiculous.
And that, like, for Sunday, like, as a squad leader, like, I I particularly didn't have a great time during that mission, but it wasn't anybody's fault. It was just I hadn't been a squad leader in a long time. I was stressed out. I had a headache by the end of it. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, you were rusty.
I was physically uncomfortable and in pain by the end of that mission
Mm-hmm.
because of how stressed out I was. So when it was all said and done, we did our debriefs. I talked to my squad. I'm like, look, I'm in a bad fucking mood. Don't take any of this personally. You guys did a great fucking job. You know what I mean? I pointed out everything that they did that was correct. I'm just really feeling shitty right now. So just please give me your does anybody have any comments or whatever? Give me your attendance and you guys can go. It's been a long night. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
You guys did a wonderful job, you know? Like I don't let my attitude make you feel like I'm going to piss all over you guys.
Right.
Nobody's fault. But yeah.
Yeah, and Slender saying he wish he could have seen the Heckman in his prime. I know I kind of man crush all over Heckman all the time. It's deserved. You know, Heckman will constantly kind of downplay how impactful he was on that platoon. Since he's here, I'm going to go ahead and lavish him a little bit. I want you guys to understand something here real quick. I want you guys to understand how impactful a good SNCO can be on a platoon, and how impactful a bad SNCO can be on a platoon. Now, there were bad platoon sergeants back in the day, back when we had, 5 platoons running. There were some bad fucking platoon sergeants. Guys that just had no clue what they were doing. They didn't give a fuck about anybody in the platoon, and I'm not going to mention names here, but guys that they didn't give a shit. They thought because they read a field manual, they know how to be a platoon sergeant. And it was constant, what I call, bullshit reinforcement. What I mean by that is, even when they fucked up, it was always, and this is one of the worst phrases that you can ever say in front of me, is, you guys did pretty good. I fucking hate hearing that, because of how often I heard dog shit SNCOs say that back in the day, when it was blatantly obvious that their guys fucked up. And they would say, oh, you guys did pretty good, but, we could improve on this. Instead of, buckling down and telling them what they fucked up. And not just what they fucked up, but how to do it right. And they wouldn't do that. So, Heckman, on the other hand, was kind of the other way around. If we did fuck something up, he was going to call us out on it. And say, why didn't you guys do it like this? At the same time, he actually gave a shit about everybody in the platoon. To a level that nobody else has really recreated. He was the ideal platoon sergeant. Now, why I say that was impactful, okay? Cast your mind back 3 years ago to the personnel that were in Havoc 1. Myself, Hammer, Williams, Burke, pretty much, as well as Cherry, who, just went into reserves, but was basically could have been a platoon sergeant anytime he wanted. Pretty much the very senior leadership that all of you guys know, and, whether they're at a platoon element or like myself and Hammer at, company level, so on. Every one of those really senior guys that you guys know and have heard about and so on came out of 1st Platoon. Every single one of us were Havoc 1. And Heckman was our platoon sergeant. That bond that all of us share, you guys know that me and Hammer and Williams and Burke, like, all of us are all real close. We're all really good buddies. That's because of the fact that we got lucky and got Heckman as a platoon sergeant. We lucked out by going into Havoc 1. I simply went into Havoc 1 just because of the fact, hey, there's an open rifleman spot there. looks good enough. They operate on Sunday, not Saturday. Good for me. Boom, I'll go. And I lucked out into getting into 1-2 Bravo. And because of the mentality that he spread throughout the entire platoon, from the top all the way down to the brand new PV2s that came in, everybody knew Heckman. He came and talked to every single fucking person that came into that platoon. He knew every guy in his platoon. And because of that, we all came up through the ranks with that same mentality and tried our best to spread it throughout our squads, our platoons, our company now. So I can't stress enough, and this isn't just for this ArmA shit. I mean, this is for anything in your regular everyday life. I can't stress enough how important it is for leadership to actually give a damn. You know, when you feel like you have no support from above, it makes your job that much worse. So when you know you've got somebody higher looking out for you, who's always got your back, who, you know, is gonna be honest with you, is gonna tell you, yeah, you fucked up, is gonna tell you, yeah, you did this right, but let's do it better. It's not good enough. It's not perfect. You know why it's not perfect? You haven't trained enough. You always have to train more. You always have to get better. And that's what we did.
I'm back.
Yeah, Heckman, of course you can fucking hop in here. And he can yell at me for talking all kinds of good things about him.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I can't stress enough for even you guys as, you know, whether you're a supervisor or, you know, you're a squad leader here in the unit or whatever, like, it may seem stupid to say that you care about your guys, but it's so fucking important to not just the morale, but just the entire mindset of the guys. Because even when you're in the shittiest of situations, even when we had, you know, some of the worst operations that you can imagine, by the time it was all said and done, we could still joke about it. Like, we could still have a good time. We could look back at it and say, hey, you remember when fucking Hammond closed the doors on the fucking train station and said, it's okay, guys, it can't see us now, when we were getting stared down by a fucking T-72? Or, you know, when I tried killing it with an Igla? And we can laugh about it because, yeah, we understood it was a game, but at the same time, we knew, you know, Heckman wasn't going to yell at us because he was sitting there right fucking next to us laughing when we said, you know, fix bayonets. Oh, and there's Heckman. Well, hello, beautiful.
Hello, hello.
We are graced with the man himself. What is up, Pumpkin?
I already have a chub.
Oh, oh boy. Basically, I just wanted to tell you, or tell your viewers actually, because everything he said is bullshit.
Complete falsity.
It's all fake news. I've been thinking about this comment because you made it earlier, and I want to, you know, when you said that somebody made a comment about you taking point and like, should you be doing that?
Oh yeah.
And I wanted, I didn't want to tell you nothing. You do you, but I want to tell your viewers, if you see him do that and you care about him, you walk up to him and you be like, Top, I'm going in first. Let me be me and let me take this bullet for you, because that's gonna give him the biggest hard on.
Oh God, I will have a red, white, and blue fucking hard on that's gonna hit the safety on my weapon until you go.
Because while I was screaming to my guys to leave me behind, when Brewer emerged through the smoke like the fucking hero and Enrique Iglesias was playing, you know, in the background, right? I was genuinely pissed that he, you know, did not leave me behind. I was, you know, secretly, when I was like, you know, he's carrying me, and I was like, okay, like that's why we do what we do. You know, tactics, comms. I know a lot of people join the unit because of comms. Hell, that's the first thing that struck me.
That's
like,
that's what gets everybody into it.
Yep, I wanted to talk, like, you know, like I wanted to role play the talk. You know,
yeah, you want to talk the talk.
Yep, if I can't walk the walk, I'll talk the talk. So But that's a big reason why, being part of something bigger is a reason why. But for me, and it just kind of happened. My role play, my character, if you will, was always that guy that just gave a shit about his dudes, because a lot of people don't think about that. And just imagine those scenarios that he talks. If I didn't care or my guys didn't care, those aren't fun. Those aren't interesting. Those are actually kind of annoying that I kept getting shot and left. They don't.
It may have happened more than once.
Yeah, it happened. But I'll tell you, when we had one in our company's chain that I somewhat respected, and that was Captain Whitby.
Mm-hmm. I still to this day I do have respect for Whitby. I've talked to him, since, and he's still a very reasonable person. I still respect him.
And there's a reason why, like, everybody talks about, the Rossman Mile, and that's like one of my favorite missions of all time, watching, oh God, what was his name? Shit, now I'm horrible platoon sergeant, can't even remember. 1-2 squad lead.
Wishiff.
Yeah, Bischoff freaking pushed his guys through, and then they just walked right past me to set up a base of fire before the medic secured me. Like, that was just so epic to me. But the only reason I was in that situation is because Whippy refused to let one of our guys be left behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I refused to leave him. Like, so we both pushed up, and then he goes, "You stay here." I poked up from the bush. I watched Whippy get chunked by a BTR. Like, literally the meat was like coming off of it. I almost chuckled because it was so comical.
Yeah, it was just so ridiculous.
This isn't the first time. He got hit by a tank shell during another mission, and he bounced in the air, then landed on the train tracks. And that one, I literally chuckled. But that was the type of leader. He led with the guys. He'd say where he was going, and I'd be on comms. Hey, 1-4, Captain said your way. Make sure he gets there, and square him away.
Keep an eye out for him.
So you need to role play it up and down, that caring for your guys. Like I said, if Top is sitting there and he wants to be leading from the front, great. That's the type of leader that you want to follow. But it's perfectly fine for you to be like, Top, man, like, you're too important. Like, let me take this. With unknown enemies in here, like, let me grab point.
Right.
And believe me, he's going to get a boner.
Yeah. Like that's the thing is, like, generally in that situation, if I'm out front, it's because everybody else is slowed down. For whatever reason, they're moving too slow. I push. I'm not trying to fucking toot my own horn. It's just, I know what I'm doing. I know how quickly things need to be done. So I push and get it fucking taken care of. Like in that exact situation, it was actually Clarky that was on point. And every time he went to talk on the radio, he would stop. And it would stack up everybody behind him. And I was like, Clarky, I'm taking point. I can't have you stopping the entire fucking clearing element every time you got to talk on the radio. So I took point and moved past him. Now, had somebody been behind me and, like you said, been like, no, Top, I got it, I'm taking point, and just moved right past me, fucking all for it. Get after it. Fucking get after it, dude. I am never going to tell you, no, I'm taking point. Fuck no. If you have the capability and the speed and the knowledge to take point from me and fucking get it, by all means, do it.
Like, and everybody that knows me knows that a lot of things that I do, say, whatever, come from like some of my favorite military movies of all time, right? So that scene in We Were Soldiers, when he grabs Hal Moore, and he says, "If you go down, we all go down."
Yeah.
Like, he didn't ask. He got him the hell off that front line because, and back to the anthill. That's like what I'm talking about. That appreciate the guys that are above you, and that happened to me. With my medic in the bridge mission, I was sitting there scanning targets, trying with my thermals, trying to find out, who's gonna shoot us next, and. Bullets are just raining all around me. Ting, 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 ting. And by this time, if you were to say my character by this is suicidal. Okay, I was completely deflated and done. So like bullets are tinging off of the MRAP that I'm poking my head around, and my medic is like, Heckman, could you get back here? And like there's some things we can't do in game. We can't grab people and physically move them.
Yeah.
That's one thing I don't know. That's like a dream of mine. Bumping helmets with somebody, that's another. Like they have no bearing on anything other than like that caring and immersion,
Right.
And so believe me, if you do it, if you have leaders that role play it right, that giving a shit, like it will enrich your experience. I 100% stand by that.
That's completely the reason why anytime that I'm the task force commander and we air assault, if we roll in the birds, like I said, I'm always the first guy in. But you'll also notice if I'm the task force commander, every single time right before we set down, there's a phrase that comes out of my mouth. And that phrase is, all right, let's go to work. Every single time. So, because I'm going to be the first guy off that bird, but that lets everybody else, at least in my mind, that lets everybody else in that bird know I'm punching the clock right next to you. We're going into this side by side. I'm going to work just like you are. I am no better. I am completely equal to you as of right now. Second my foot steps off this fucking bird, we're in the same situation. So that's every single time. If I'm the task force commander, when that bird gets ready to touch down, preferably a Chinook, so I'm right there on the ramp, I tell him, all right, let's go to work. It's time to punch that clock.
Yep. And you got to keep each other grounded, with your men. My thing was always, all right, boys, it's going to be a hot LZ. Keep your head on a swivel. And you believe me when I tell you that my squad leaders were like, how are we meant to keep our head on a swivel? They gave it right back to me. I just tell them to shut up and do their job. But those sort of bonds, I mean, we share it to this day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, that's
what
why...
What you need to ask Top about, though, is how come whenever they talk about Havoc 1, they never talk about the platoon commander, and they always talk about the platoon sergeant? Because we had about 8 of them.
Well, at the same time, Walls, I loved Walls.
Walls was...
I'll forever love Walls, mostly just because of his accent. And then at the same time, we had, for at least a little while, we did have Avery as a platoon leader. Mm-hmm. And I will forever give Avery credit as a good platoon leader.
Best Avery by far that I've
Avery
ever had.
Did it right. And yeah, for those of you guys that don't know, Avery was 1-4 before I was. I took over after Avery. And he did it right. Like, he absolutely understood that role separation between a platoon leader and a platoon sergeant. Like, I always thought that you guys were a very good combination together. And I actually had, I think I mentioned this maybe on the last podcast or maybe before. I had a conversation with Margie, who now runs 1-4. And he was kind of picking my brain on how we used to do things back in the day and so on. And he asked me at one point, how much freedom did I have as 1-4 in terms of where my guys were and stuff like that. And I kind of thought for a second, and I was like, I mean, I had complete freedom. Like, I was never told where to really set my guys up, per se. Like, you guys would relay to me where you wanted me to be at, but the second bullets started flying, your directions for me were just, okay, do your job. It wasn't 1-4, I need you to move over here. It was me, radioing one of my other squad leaders, whoever was in contact, like, hey, I'm sending a machine gun over to you, or hey, 1-7, I'm setting up over here, I've got this entire area locked down. I told you guys basically where I was going, and not so much that I told you guys like, hey, I'm doing this, deal with it. It was just you guys had the confidence in my ability to know where to employ my weapon systems to just be like, okay, yeah, if that's where you think they're best used, get after it.
Well, and you forged the connection between 1-4 and the other squads. Like when you do that, like, it's all about your connections,
right?
Whether it's me to my squad leaders to each other, the platoon to our assets. You best believe that we had the like. I mean, don't get me wrong, okay? First of all, because I know people are gonna kill me when they say this. Um, uh, goddamn, what the A10 pilot now that everybody loves? What's his name?
Soto.
Yeah, Soto, right?
We had
Soto's
Coke.
amazeballs, okay? He's great. I get it.
We had Coke.
Well, I mean, he laced it up,
Motherfucking
man.
Coke and a smile, all right?
Yep.
Coke and a smile.
That man was the grunt in the sky. Like he
Absolutely.
Oh my god.
It very much so, or very quickly, was the same thing with Soto because he took directly over for Coke, and that was actually one of Coke's things as he was kind of stepping out of the office, if you will. Was his one directive to Soto was, you better make friends with Havoc 1, and specifically, you better make friends with 1-4 because they're your direct competition. That was like his one standing order for Soto was, you better get to know the guys in first platoon because their asses are the ones that you're saving. That was like his one direction for him.
Yep.
But, you know, I was telling somebody just the other day that more often than not, when, you know, we were traveling, when contact started, like the first rounds that would fly out, more often than not, and this wasn't a failing on Platoon HQ's position at all or anything like that. More often than not, I was on the radio first asking who's in contact because I needed to know where to get my weapons to. I had to know who I needed to support. So I was instantly on the radio saying, who's in contact? And, you know, one person would come back, you know, 1-3's in contact. We've got, you know, squad size element 300 meters to our northwest. Roger. Oscar Mike. And then, you know, we go from there and do whatever it is that needs to be done while you guys are relaying information up to company and so on and so forth. And then you would generally come over platoon net and start coordinating the other squad's movements and stuff. But because I was the supporting element, I was almost always on the radio first because I had to get my guys moving. I had to know where to get them to. And I always loved that because again, when Margie was asking me about like how much freedom I had and stuff like that, he asked me if I ever felt useless in Mout. And I was like, no, absolutely not. Like, if anything, I was more in demand in Mout because I had the big weapon systems. I had to support everybody. So I had to kind of quarterback everything. I had to, at all times, know where everybody was. I had to keep guys in line with my guys so that should anything happen, I'm in a position to support them. So it was all, you know, granted, it was obviously on you guys as well to coordinate movements, but at the same time, I had to quarterback a lot of that because I knew exactly where my guys were positioned and who could move where quickest.
Yep. Yeah, and that, like, and Loster can attest to this, right? We came from the 15th where, how do I put it? Basically, the 15th is where ideas go to die. Okay, the chain of command reaches a point, and then there's like a link that just kind of is like broken, and nothing gets past that link.
Just to be clear, Wargames Inc. does not share any expressed opinions by Mr. Heckman.
Let Heckman in your podcast. This is what you should have expected.
But anyways, it that was a problem. I don't know how it is now. I'm sure it's great. But back then,
Thank you.
We had an issue where things wouldn't exactly make it to the top, and I honestly personally believe that the top really didn't, you know, care what we had to do. Now, when the 506 was stood up, it was stood up so quickly, so fast. It suffered. I mean, let's be real, from similar problems.
Mm-hmm.
There was a bloat. Where sometimes, you know, stuff wouldn't happen. So
I mean, we had award recommendations that were never sent up by our own goddamn company.
Yeah, and those things, you know, I can't speak for the second company, but I can speak for the first. I know that was one thing that that ended my time in the 506 was just when you care, you pay the price. Right. Luckily for you guys have a strong chain now. So you guys, and even though, hey, believe me, even though it might not seem sometimes, like, trust me when I tell you, it can be 1,000 times worse because I've seen it. And like I said, for me, it's all about caring about your guys, but that's also ultimately what did me in too. So
Yeah,
I
because
cared
it was.
so much,
Yep.
and I got so sick of how we were treated that I like I said, I was truly defeated time after time. Um, uh, but yeah, that so
Yeah,
just
because
always remember it's risk reward, I guess.
like now, we do every quarter. I do a company enlisted meeting where all enlisted personnel are welcome to come to the meeting, ask any fucking question they want to ask. Doesn't matter. There's nothing off the fucking table, and I give them, the answer to the best of my ability. They bring up ideas like, hey, I'll take it to fucking company and see, if that's something we can do. I'm not going to tell you you're going to get an answer on it. If it's a no, you'll probably not see anything about it ever again. If it's a yes, then you'll see that change happen. But, it gets guys talking and allows us to clear up fucking misinformation, which is one of the things I hate the absolute most. But it allows, the newest PV2 to directly address the very top of the chain of command and say, hey, why do we do this? Or, why was I told to do this, but this says we're supposed to do it this way? Just simple shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
I never remember us doing that before. I don't think we ever did we?
Yeah, but they were the most horrible excuses for meetings ever. And we'd pretty much get done, and then I would have to just listen to what the hell was that for? So they got horrible. Captain just left because I was really gonna. So since Captain left, I'm gonna let you guys in on a little inside secret. Since
All
I'm
right,
down with
now the shit
Top,
talking begins.
since I'm down with Top and Captain, guys, full on ACE medical will be implemented,
Yeah.
as well as medevacs. Okay, that's coming too.
Paveways are on the way, motherfuckers.
And one death permakills.
Yes.
Okay, boys? We did it.
Or sorry, not paveways, pave hawks.
We did it, Reddit. Okay, we did it.
Yeah. But no, I mean, honestly, it is really nice to, to be able to have Heckman, kind of talk about some of this shit, because obviously Heckman's kind of detached. Well, not really detached. I mean, you still, you're still around a little bit, but obviously you're not here in the same capacity that you were, 2-3 years ago. So when he gives you guys his perspective on shit, this is somebody that's seen the worst of it and is now looking at it from kind of outside the circle. And there's no personal friendships involved, in the sense that, like, Heckman's not going to fucking sugarcoat it just because me and him are buddies. Like, if I was, just completely fucking something up, or, doing something wrong, he would call me out on it right here. And I'm glad that he would do that. That's one of the reasons that we've always respected Heckman, because he, as well as, many of us in senior leadership, is able to, as we call it, flip that switch and, understand that personal friendships are aside from, unit related shit. So it's nice to be able to hear the perspective of somebody that's no longer really attached to any of it and not, living it, if you will, to be able to, kind of hear his thoughts on it. And I mean, at least I know for me, even at my level, at a company level, which obviously I wasn't at before, but still, I know, at least for me, it's very, very obvious the amount and the size of, or kind of the scale of the changes that have happened over the last, 2 years or so. Like, for me, it's like, holy fuck, dude, it's like a completely different unit. At least in my eyes, it is.
Oh, it is. And yeah, I definitely do not sugarcoat things. Everybody that knows me knows that Aaron and Loster are two of my least favorite people on planet Earth.
Ever.
And I will
And
tell
that's
you,
including Hitler.
I believe the second thing, but not the first thing.
And I will tell you that I would there we go. I would rather have them Zeus any day compared to what we had before. Like, the change in the Zeus operators is amazing. Like, again, you can have a mission that you're not gonna like, whatever, but here's the difference. You can have that mission that you're not gonna like. They're gonna be held accountable for it. You know what I mean? Unless the mission's designed for you not to like it,
Yeah.
because that's a thing too. So people need to realize that. But I'm not kidding. Like these guys, they give a shit, and it's not about them. It's about you. So appreciate the job that they do, the work that goes into from top to all of your Zeus operators. I mean, that's a part that I'm extremely impressed with, because that was one change that I could never get implemented.
No,
So
we never thought it was going to happen, and technically it didn't. I mean, it took drastic actions to make that change happen.
So yeah, but believe me, I'm really impressed with a lot of the stuff, and even today, I still, even though I'm not truly immersed in all of it, and as much as I do watch the streams constantly, and and I'll even tell Top, I'm like, hey, you be a little hard on guys, and he'll be like, well, so we still do what we did. We
Oh
still
yeah,
talk to each
absolutely.
other just like that, and the amount of respect that I have for him and for every member of this unit is still incredibly high. I mean, except for Aaron, that guy's
Oh
trash.
yeah, yeah.
So,
But no, like, I mean, we do though. We do still talk, and hey, this situation, like, I don't know. I think it could have been done this way. Well, I think it could have been done this way. And even if we disagree and we don't come to a conclusion in which we both agree, it's never going to like ruin our fucking friendship or anything like
no,
that. Like
the Kingdom Come
it's
Deliverance versus fucking The Witcher, that would have shattered most friendships.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. For us, it's just us having a conversation,
Yep.
And especially with the unit shit, like, believe me, guys, when I tell you, like, we can get pretty fucking heated about unit shit, especially me and Heckman, because we are so passionate about everybody that's involved in it. So like, we can really get fucking heated. Like, when I tell you guys, I've had some fucking heated discussions with people about unit shit. Like, Heckman's one of those people. We can really get into it.
And that's what you want from from your
absolutely.
top. You want somebody that cares that much. Like what? But again, mistakes will happen, and people will think like, "Hey, this is a good idea." Then maybe it's just not that. But you got people in that give a shit, man, and that's so crazy to me. That part boggles my mind. So
Well, especially with this deployment, and I know we are running pretty long here, guys, and we'll wrap it up here in just a minute. But with this deployment specifically, I mean, that's the reason that I'm putting so much work into it. Like, genuinely, I can't even begin to explain to you guys how much shit like I'm having to keep track of. Okay, this person got this, this write up done. All right, I gotta wait for this guy to get this map done. Hey, you got this map done. All right, cool. Get it sent over to so and so. All right, he's got that done. All right, get it sent back over to so and so. All right, cool. Yep, that looks good. Now let's change this line. All right, let's get it posted. All of that shit, like, that's been tying up pretty much my entire, morning, afternoon, like, daily for the last couple of weeks in preparation for this. And and that's not to try and get like recognition from guys or be like, hey, Top, this is awesome, thank you so much, this or that. No, not at all. I want to, I guess I want guys to understand that for a lot of us, it's not just a fucking Sunday night thing to do. For
Yep.
a lot of us, it's a lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings, a lot of sitting in TeamSpeak with 2-3 other guys, planning and planning and planning. And, I mean, that image that you guys are looking at, that Operation Lionheart thing in the top left corner there, that took about 2 hours to get done. It was 2 hours of 3 of us sitting in a channel and then getting approval from the CO to make just that badge happen. That's how much work is going into this deployment. So if it takes us 2 hours to get a fucking badge done, you can start to imagine how much work is going into a fucking operation that's supposed to last 3 hours, a fucking deployment that's going to last however many months. Like, the guys, especially in S2 and S3 right now going into this deployment, have put in already such a ridiculous amount of work to give guys a couple hours of fun every weekend. It's absolutely amazing the shit that they're willing to do and the amount of time that they're willing to donate to give 60 guys a couple hours of fun every weekend. Like I never remember a deployment. Like I've said earlier, I never remember a deployment that had this amount of work done for it. Now, granted, I wasn't involved in the backroom stuff of every single deployment, but for a couple of them, I was there for the planning of the deployment, or the planning of the FTX cycles and what we were going to do and stuff. And believe me, there's never been this much work put into a deployment. So I'm excited as a motherfucker about it. And I'm pretty sure Loster is pretty excited for it as well. And
yes.
Hopefully everybody else is. Hopefully, Heckman, you're excited to at least watch it and see what we come up with.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and make for the last 3 deployments, I've said that I'm going to go ahead and log in and fill in, so I'm going to go ahead and say that now. I won't, but I'm just going to say it.
No, you'll fill in once. I mean, you've pretty much gotten one fill in every deployment.
My ribbon rack's going to be looking awful sparse these days.
Granted, one of those fill-ins was with me one night, and you went AFK for like 10 minutes at the start of a firefight, and I may or may not have had to sit there and protect fucking Heckman while he's laying dick in the dirt, sitting there talking to the local fucking sex bot on his cell phone. And I'm like, Heckman, please get back. We need to move. We're about to be overrun.
That doesn't sound like me at all.
No, not at all.
Sounds more like me, actually.
Yeah, well, no, I just leave because I'm like, fuck it, I don't care anymore. He's AFK.
I'll come back. I always come back.
You don't ever leave Loster, okay? Because there's
He's
two
gonna
things.
Leave me sometime.
There's 2 things that are gonna happen, right? He's either going to land nav back to where you actually are, or he's gonna walk up to a base full of Germans, and then
and kill them all. Yes, and kill all of them. Yes,
and kick off the entire fucking engagement
and win the war for the fucking good guys.
I'm gonna say this though: there's no confirmation that those Germans were actually Nazis, so they were probably just like a family. But you spun the story, so you just murdered this like a.
That's true. We never actually seen them. We just heard a lot of gunshots. For all we know, there was a family of fucking farmers that were just trying to protect their fucking cows. And Loster just rolled in there and fucking slaughtered all of them.
No, he's just sitting on a log eating chocolate, just shooting his gun in the air. I got him, guys.
Yeah.
so that nobody came looking.
Pretty much. Yeah. So all right, we definitely need to wrap it up. When do deployment orders get posted? The deployment order is already up. The operation order will be up sometime tonight or tomorrow. The planning meeting actually just happened while we were still doing the podcast here. And that's, I guess I should run over with you guys real quick just so you understand. A warno or a warning order is simply a notification that an operation is coming up. We get the warno, then we do a planning meeting with the section leads for each task force. Once we do the planning meeting, then an operation order is posted. The operation order details to the infantry platoon exactly what that operation is going to consist of. A deployment order is what we received Sunday night, letting us know that we were being redeployed from our training facility to fucking SCSI. So that's kind of the differences between the different, warno, op board, deployment order, so on. So yeah, we need to wrap it up. Any last minute things from you guys that you'd like to bring up real quick? And also real quickly, huge fucking thank you to the Heckman for joining us, by the way.
Yes, Heckman, thank you for gracing us with your presence.
Yeah,
like an eclipse.
I'm mostly just ending the podcast so I can go jerk off because
It's very
Heckman.
well. It's very bittersweet because I know that right now he's talking to me. I'm not gonna talk to him again probably for like another year. Probably next deployment.
Right.
Hey,
That's
you know
why I'm
what,
gonna go.
Brewer?
That's why I'm gonna go
So
rub one out.
Yeah.
I just talked to him on stream so that way I can pick a fight with him, and then it never comes to a head. So that's basically all I do with Brewer.
That's not true. We talk on Steam. Usually when we're talking shit during drum stream, but yes, we talk on Steam.
Go ahead, Lobster.
I'm glad he talks to you on Steam. He doesn't talk to me on Steam. I'm not worthy of the Heckman.
No,
treatment.
he just doesn't like you. So
No, I know. So I do want to do a final announcement before we sign off. I didn't get to do it at the beginning because my fucking internet died for a second there.
yes.
But Be Kind Rewind will be available to watch on my YouTube channel tomorrow at noon Eastern. I'm just about I haven't started. I'm just about finished editing. I haven't started encoding yet because that's going to take all night. I have a shitty processor. So and then I'll upload it in the morning. Let me link my YouTube channel just in case anybody didn't have.
All right, cool. So that'll be up tomorrow.
Tomorrow at noon.
Tomorrow at noon.
What is that?
This is something that we do need you to come do with us at some point in time, Heckman. Be Kind Rewind is a show that we're doing. We pre-record the show. It's basically just me and Lobster sitting down and talking for like 2 or 3 hours on a movie that we love. The first one we did was Demolition Man. So we sat down and kind of gave a rundown of the movie, what we thought of it, so on and so forth.
How long is the show? Because I could talk for like 3 hours just about the 3C show.
That's how long it was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. It was right about 3 hours.
We did.
That's exactly what we did, actually.
So yeah, I mean, I would love to get you in there with us sometime because I know you're also a movie connoisseur, if you will.
You know me, and I love everything.
Yes. And someone mentioned in chat to have Heckman join the squirrel stuff again. The reason that I don't like Heckman being in the squirrel stuff, this is going to sound like a surprise to you guys. The reason I don't like Heckman being in the squirrel stuff, he's too much of a fucking distraction for me. Because when we do the squirrel stuff, I always end up having to lead a team, which fine, whatever it is, what it is. But when Heckman is there in a fun capacity, okay, when it's not official unit shit, we're there to have fun. Me and Heckman basically turn into 12-year-old girls. And we spend the entire night laughing. And then we get yelled at by Drum because we're laughing. And it's only expounded if Hammer and Hammond are there. If
Which
those
makes
two
us
fucking
laugh harder,
exactly.
By the way,
if those two fucking knuckleheads are there, so if it's me, Hammer, Hammond, and Heckman, it's gonna be fun. But we're gonna get yelled at, and we're probably all gonna die because we're too busy fucking laughing and making jokes to actually do our jobs properly.
Do you remember when we couldn't stop
when we got yelled
for like
at
20 minutes just about tank busters?
You guys need to fucking take this seriously.
Tank buster, pointing to the sky. God damn, that was so dumb.
Yeah.
Oh.
We have legit got like straight up yelled at by Drum for kind of breaking immersion and just laughing at ridiculous things. I thought it was realistic too.
Yeah. Well, and there's some things that you just can't play them off. Like when I blew up the tower with the Doomsday rounds, it's like how. Well, the tower's clear. Like, how else am I supposed to pretend that it didn't just happen?
The best example I have is that night in Electro when all of us were there at the train station, and like I talked about earlier, Hammond closing the doors and being like, it's okay, you can't see us now. And we're all ducked down in between the concrete platform, we're all laying on the train tracks. And, we get the order to fix bayonets. And I'm like, gentlemen, prepare to defend yourselves. And we're all laughing like a bunch of fucking idiots because we're like, yep, we're about to die. Might as well fucking enjoy it while we can. We would have got our asses reamed for that had there been like higher ups there, like especially if Drum was there. We probably would have gotten yelled at for that. But again, like it was me and Heckman and Hammond and Hammer and Frankles, and we were just having a good time.
I got yelled at for making dam jokes on Crimson Moon when we took the dam. I spent the last 25 minutes of that mission because nothing was going on for 2-3. I was just going between my the two fire teams, just making damn jokes. Damn good job, man. Damn fine work. I did that. I literally did that for like 20 minutes, and I think Williams got on comms and told Pips to tell me to shut the fuck up.
Williams is no fucking better. Okay,
Yeah.
he's just as much of a fucking jackass as the rest of us. You know, like Williams doesn't ever get to come into the squirrel shit because he's just way too busy with work. But he's another one that is just a huge fucking distraction. I mean, you guys will know, like Hammer's been in quite a few of the squirrel missions, and generally he runs in my team. And you'll notice anytime that Hammer's there, it tends to be a lot more kind of lighthearted, and we make a lot more jokes and shit like that, just because that's how we are. So, yeah, long short, that's why I don't like Heckman being in the squirrel shit, because it generally means I'm going to end up getting fucking yelled at because we're making stupid jokes. And I'm generally trying to sexually assault Heckman. So, yeah, that's that. But, yeah, we need to wrap it up. That's going to be it for tonight, guys. Again, I can't fucking tell you guys enough how much I appreciate the support that you guys have shown. Because I got a kid breaking in here, so stand by a second.
Roar! Play with me. Hey Heckman. How come we don't hang out anymore?
Because he doesn't like you.
I don't hang out with anybody. So.
It's not
all
true.
right.
I see you up there with drum.
Apologies. Yeah, you guys play PUBG every now and then. Actually, I need to fucking... Have you gone back to WoW yet, Heckman? Have you checked out BFA at all?
Oh, yeah. Oh.
All right, we'll have to talk about that later. But yeah, that's going to be it for tonight, guys. Again, can't thank you guys enough for all the support. Colf, thank you for that sub. I did see that earlier. Sorry I didn't mention it. We'll be back at it, like I said, tomorrow afternoon. I'm going to be doing a stream showing you guys all the new RHS changes and shit that came out over the last week or whatever.
Gun nuts.
Yes, tax sacks. So yeah, tomorrow afternoon, probably around like 1600 or so, I'll do a stream for that, just showing you guys some of the new shit. And then probably end up filling in for squad training tomorrow evening. But that's it for the podcast tonight. Again, thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you, Heckman and Lobster, for joining us, and I will see you all later.